What's up,
Konbanwa,
everybody?
Sudipiko-chan, Yashida-san.
I didn't
Genki
prompt
desu
you.
ka?
I didn't say to say anything.
Ni hao.
Ni
That
hao,
ni hao's
Milo.
Chinese.
Oh shoot, sorry.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, that was to Tim. Sorry.
No. Okay, so what we were saying was, I think Yoshida-san and Sudipiko-san might be listening. So Mark can actually speak Japanese.
No, I can't. Not anymore.
You
My,
literally
my
said something
conversational
before you went
skills have-
live.
I
say?
repeated it just now.
Yeah, but I don't know. Like, there was some crosstalk going on.
Oh, well, okay. Basically, all I said was, good evening, Sudipiko and Yoshida. How are you doing?
But you have to say it in Japanese.
That's what I said. I said, Konbanwa, Yoshida-san, Sudipiko-chan, o genki desu ka?
There you
Yeah,
go.
that's all.
Okay.
It's very generic.
It's really funny because we've talked about this, but I jump onto a lot of their live streams.
Yeah, he listens
and sometimes
in, but he
they
doesn't.
keep quiet, and they're like, "He's listening in," and I'm like, "I can't understand."
Do you ever jump in on their like Twitter Spaces?
Yes, all the time.
Yeah, he
I
jumps
see,
in,
like-
and then there's like a silence, and they're like, and they're like, "Dare desu ka? Oh, dare wa sanpuku."
I jumped in on one because I'm like, oh, these guys post a lot about Common America. Like, I should know what they're talking about. Click, and I'm
listen-
like, I don't know what they're saying.
Yeah,
I'm
there's a
not-
long silence as Tim waits for them to say something, and then he just hears like Yoshida-san go, "Timu-san?" Like, oh, konbanwa, Yoshida-san. And then he's like, please reeve.
All I know is I jump in, it gets kind of quiet, there's a little bit of laughter, and then I hear like, Kamen America, and then I leave. Like,
That's so funny.
and then sometimes what's his name, Yachifusa-san, he does YouTube videos where he's drawing live, and I'll pop in, and there's a running joke involving zucchini, so I'll just come in and like put the zucchini like emoticon, and then like I'll know when he sees it because he'll start laughing, and I have no idea what he's saying.
Zunura.
Zunura. Don't know anything that he's saying afterwards. So the entire reason we jumped on was because Nasser said late, or not Nasser, Jim Tuner said late, and I was like, we might be late for our YouTube videos, but we're not late for our comics, which is the complete opposite of some other people. But hey, we're here. That's all that matters.
Hachifusa-san, by the way, in my head, whenever I read his tweets, he sounds like McBain from The Simpsons in my head, because he just had this one really funny tweet where he drew Carly eating a bowl of Japanese cornflakes called Corn Frosty, and we had just posted the Common America and Florida Girl Meet Manatees comic, and so we've been talking about manatees all day, and the drawing had the picture of this bald gray face on her t-shirt.
Yeah.
And I posted like, "Oh, Carly has a manatee T-shirt," and just the way he replied, for some reason, it sounded in my head like something McBain would say. It was like, "That is not a manatee. That is my self-portrait."
He always says the same.
Janai, watashi desu.
He always says the same thing every day. It's time for Corn Frosty.
Corn Frosty.
Except on weekends. Apparently he does not eat them on weekends.
They sell Corn Frosty only in bags in Japan. They do not sell it in boxes anymore.
Oh, is it? So it's kind of like when you go to Walmart and they have like that section where they sell the.
Yeah.
So they don't.
Really,
so like
really,
they don't see Tony the Tiger.
They do.
Oh, they do. It's just on the
they
bag.
love to like, "Oh, Tony-san."
Is that what he's called over there, Tony?
Yeah, he's called Tony the Tiger over there.
Okay. Anyway, all right, chat. So we have been gone for quite some time because we have nothing to talk about, but we're here. We're here. Let's talk about some stuff. So I think first of all, let's talk about Soulfinder Infinite Ascent. If you backed the campaign for the crossover and you pledged over $10, you actually got 2 mystery PDFs. Spoiler, in case you haven't seen them yet. The first one was the Rags number 8, I think. Was it 7 or 8? One of the two.
8.
It's the one where there's a crossover between Rags, Punchline, and Black Ops. So that one's fun. That was a lot of fun. Thanks to Brian for giving us that opportunity. We saw him at Bell County Comic Con. It was awesome. It was obviously really great seeing Eric Canetti.
You tricked him into going to church.
I did not trick him into going to church. He'll tell you
You're like,
that.
no, you're like, get in the van. We're going to the convention. Like, we just got to make one quick stop first.
Okay, so here's the story. I don't know if Tyler's heard the full story or not. You might have from Brian. But we were at Bell County Comic Con and we were having breakfast. And there's a bunch of us who are Catholic. Myself, the Flork, his friend, and Doug Ernst. And they all said, hey, do you go to church? And I said, yeah, every Sunday. Even when I do conventions, I try to find the closest one and I'll sneak out in the morning. So I said, okay, guys, we'll meet in the lobby and let's head out by 9. So we're leaving. And I don't look behind me. And it turns out Brian had followed us because he assumed we were going to the convention. And I was like, Brian, are you Catholic? Like, are you coming with us? And he's like, what? Catholic? Oh, what? We're going to the convention. I was like, no, we're going to church. He was like, I'm tagging along. Like, this sounds like fun. I was like, Brian, I don't mean to be that guy, but like, we take our religion seriously. And he was like, bro, I'm Christian. Like, I'll show up. I'll be on my best behavior. So I said, okay. And we went to church, and he was very well behaved, and he actually enjoyed it. So that was really cool.
I went to a Catholic mass a couple of years ago. You guys do a lot of sitting and standing.
Yeah, it's like gymnastics. That's one of the funniest King of the Hill episodes was they're trying to find another church. And so they go, Hank and Bobby, it's just this quick montage of different places that they go to. And you know which one they go to is the Catholic church. Because it's like genuflect, kneel, stand, like a bunch of, hand movements, sit. And it's a really quick, like 2-second clip. But I was like, yeah, that's the Catholic church right there.
I had fun. Everyone there was super nice. And, I was listening to the pastor, and I was like, oh, dude, I'm liking what you're saying, man. They need to say some of this stuff in my church because, like, I think like you're spouting out some. It was like in when you're Mormon, I already say, and you're single, they have you go to a singles ward with a bunch of other singles to get married.
Whoa, that's actually kind of cool.
You would think that it's hell.
Whoa. Hey, Mark, we're gonna like get you laid.
And like the whole purpose of everything is like you go to church and it's everyone there single, and then after church they do a dinner thing. They don't do it with the family wards. They do it with the singles, and then there's a lunch after church. Why? So you sit with the girl and you get to know them, and then at night. Then at night they do ward prayer where you get together and you talk, you do a quick 5-minute lesson. Like it's literally 5 minutes and then there's ice cream and then you're there to talk for another hour. It's like, it's all these situations to get you married. And so you have the people talk and they'll go, it's like, it's all the guy's fault. The guys suck. I'm like, man, I'm going to go. I need to go and find some other place. And I go to the Catholic church, and the guy's like, let me talk about dating. And I'm like, oh my gosh. like I was trying to escape this. And he goes, ladies, you guys need to do a better job. I'm like, oh yeah, heck yeah. Do I stand now? I sit down. Okay, but I like what you're saying. And everyone there was Mexican. But no, I had
Latinas, be less spicy.
Oh yeah, but it was great. But yeah, singles wards though, those are hell.
So I was when we were at this church, it's the one that my wife and I had been to when we lived in that area for 6 years, and so I know the priest, and the priest is awesome. He gives really good homilies, but we're with other than Doug, I kind of barely know some of these other people. Like I know Brian Ball, but he and I don't talk religion. We don't talk about politics. Same thing with the Flork. But the priest gets up there and it's a sermon about how he attended a leadership conference with Navy SEALs. And so, like Brian Ball, he's in the military.
Yeah, he was probably like
former military. The Flork has some military connections. And so and it was a like no holds barred talk about like culture. And afterwards we leave and I'm like, oh yeah, that sermon. And both Brian and Flork and Doug were like, dude, that was the best sermon we've ever heard.
That's awesome. And then Brian wanted to convert.
I don't want to share the story because in all seriousness, he said that there was something about the service that he saw as like a personal sign.
He had a good experience.
He had a very good experience.
That's awesome.
And so I'll let him tell that story when it's ready. But I thought, man, that was cool. to
That's
be honest,
awesome.
like, like Eric Canetti was there, and he's freaking awesome. Like, we spent like 3 days together. But Brian Ball, having talked to him for so long, like finally meeting him and hanging out with him, he's like the freaking best. Like, I want that dude to come to like all of our shows, because aside from Mark, like, he's the guy you want at your booth because he's so chatty. Like, he's so talkative. I mean, that guy is a natural born salesman. He was slinging books left and right. At the end of the show, he had like nothing left. He had like 7 copies of his book left, and he was like, "I'm done. Like, get me on the plane to go back home because I did what I needed to do."
And
so.
it's really impressive too, because he doesn't do a lot of reprints of back issues. So I think he only really had Rags 7 and 8 on hand, right? He didn't have like Rags 1 through 6.
art books with him.
Yeah, so he was selling people on like issue 7 of his series.
Interesting, like new readers.
Yeah, new readers who'd never heard of it were just buying issue 7. If we don't have Common America Volume 1 or the Omnibus on stands, we have a hard time just selling people on like picking up Volume 5 or Volume 6 just by itself. But Brian had no trouble just getting people to just pick up, including one like 6-year-old kid he sold a copy to.
I'll tell you this. Okay, I'll tell you the story real quick. I'll try and keep the sober version. So apparently, okay, I don't know if it's my place to tell the story. Like, there was a kid with his dad. They came. So we're sitting at 90-degree angle. So if I turn to my left, I can see Brian's back, and I just see, and he's about like 8-10 feet away. And I see like a dad and his kid come up. I can't hear what they're saying because obviously like it's loud. And this kid just points at a comic. I see Brian like nod his head. He looks at his dad. His dad nods his head. I see an exchange of money. They leave. I'm still looking at Brian. And Brian just like his shoulders start moving up and down like he's laughing uncontrollably. and he puts his head down. And I was like, "Brian, did you sell that kid smut?" And he was like, "It's not smut. There's literally no dirty like images in there." But he was laughing because it's like, it's not really like meant for that age. But obviously.
But he did a silent transaction.
He kind of
hilarious.
Did. Yeah, it was funny, and I was like, this guy can sell to anyone.
That kid's gonna learn a lot of new vocabulary from that.
Yes, he will learn definitely some new vocabulary from reading that book. But it was a lot of fun. I mean, oh man, I miss it. It's always like the best time of our year as far as like conventions are concerned, because we get to meet all of our friends. Like I said, met Eric Canetti, hanging out with him. Always fun meeting Doug again, even though I feel like we see him all the time now because we do so many conventions together. But yeah, those are great guys. Just an update real quick. Mark and I are doing 2 more shows. There's one that we're going to do. It's a local show in October. It's only for 1 day. And then Matt, Weldon, Mark, me, and Doug are going to be in Biloxi, Mississippi sometime in early December, I think, for a show that we've done twice now. So yeah, if anyone's waiting for the convention schedule, that's what's coming up. So that's your last opportunity. If you're in the Alabama, Mississippi area around the Gulf, come by and see us. We saw a lot of people last year. It was a lot of fun. And yeah, that's that. Let me address the chat real quick. See who's here. Seeing some familiar faces. There's Rob Curro. We met him at Bell County Comic Con. Really cool guy. And he's here. Jim Tuner, obviously, the legend himself. There's Eric Canetti. Woohoo!
Eric.
In the chat. Eric. Woo. There's Jean-Luc Connery. Yeah, I've been seeing you pop up a couple times on Twitter. Oh, Vicky versus here. I think, is Dean here? I think Dean is here too. My gosh. Okay. I'm just going to say this. You guys got to watch the Dean and Vicky video that they did last night. It's so cathartic because, honestly, like, we try to stay out of... We let people trash talk us all the time, and we don't say anything because it's Streisand effect, because it's like, when you have a bigger platform, no one's going to care what we say. I mean, like, someone with a big platform could eat a puppy live on YouTube, and I could make a video saying, like, hey, I think that dude eating that puppy live on stream was not a good idea. And people are like, what are you talking about? He didn't eat a puppy? Like, you're lying. And it's like, why? Why do you say that? Well, because he has 100,000 subs and you only have, like, 1,000. It's like, all right, well, I'm telling the truth. So the video that Vicky and Dean did last night, I watched it at 2 a.m. this morning, and I was dying laughing because I just thought some of the things they were dropping in there is like, yep, that's what we've been saying. That's what we've been thinking this whole time. We just don't say anything because no one pays attention to us anyway. And apparently we're bribing Vicky and Dean. So it's like, okay, by that logic, I guess we're bribing you too, Tyler. So I'm going to kick you off because like, can't be involved with this bribe right here. The other thing too is that the Doug Ernst video that he put out about 2 weeks ago where he addresses some of the nonsense around him. Yeah. That really took care of a lot of stuff because some videos got deleted immediately afterwards. So for anyone who is wondering what happened with all of that, he addresses it. So just go in and tune into Doug Ernst's video stream that he did about a week ago because I think that just puts the cap on that. So hopefully we can move along from some of the nonsense because we're here to talk about books. So now that we've taken care of that, we got Tyler
Well,
back
since
on.
you're talking about Doug, just a congrats to Doug because Soulfinder Infinite Ascent was a #1 new release on Amazon in its category of religious graphic novels. So, I mean, people say, like, how do we know that Doug's books are selling well if we can't see the numbers? Well, I mean, you just saw a number today, and that number was 1.
#1. Yeah, #1 in what was it, like religious?
It was a religious graphic novels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
so
fantastic.
he beats the Action Bible's been out there for a while, but I mean he's still that one's a powerhouse, and he outsold that one today. So
yeah,
Preacher. He beat out Preacher.
Is Preacher considered a religious graphic novel?
I mean, I guess
Amazon
so.
It is.
It is very heretical. That's all I'm gonna say. I like Garth Ennis's writing. Don't get me wrong. I read the whole Preacher series. He is a fantastic writer. Very, very funny. Very amusing. He knows his stuff. But man, that is not a book that you want to teach in Sunday school at all. We got some new people here too. Let's see, Young Danny. I never seen you before. Welcome. We have Mash Manga. I have pages to draw, so I'll ask this quick. Was talking to Ty, and I was wondering if y'all plan on releasing smaller softback books. Right now, no. What we decided to do was there are basically 2 types of readers. We have readers who like the hardcover books because they're like, hey, I just want to read what you have. And I appreciate that you're selling your book for so cheap in a hardcover, basically prestige format. And then we have other readers who are collectors. And basically their mentality is, we like saddle stitch books, so offer saddle stitch books. The problem with a square-bound book, even though that's my personal preference as far as a happy medium, is that it's like it doesn't really please anyone. So we don't have that plan for the foreseeable future. It's either saddle stitch or hardcover. And they're the same price for most of the things that we do. Yep. So it's really just based on what your preference is.
And you can always wait for the omnibus hardcover that'll have 4 combined into 1. So
yes,
there's always that too. So
there is.
If you miss out on one of the individual hardcover volumes and you want everything to match on your shelf, so you don't want the saddle stitch, well, just hold out for the next omnibus.
Right.
It'll be hardcover.
Yep, that'll be next fall. So our plan is to do it every 4 volumes. But Infinite Ascent, like I said, if you received a PDF through the crossover, a lot of you, at least 2,500 of you have already read it. We have some people who actually don't open the PDFs because they never read digital. They're really against it. They don't like it. So if they don't like it, I mean, they'll just have to wait for it to come out in physical. But that should be dropping pretty soon. The people who run Iconic Comics, they actually have a few side gigs that they do, and they're wrapping that up. So they're going to be able to spend at least the fall focusing solely on Iconic, and then they'll be able to offer Infinite Ascent as a physical book. So for those of you who are anxiously awaiting that is going to be dropping pretty soon too, at least in a saddle stitch format. And I know that Doug is working on a hardcover format right now as we speak. So he's going to have some info to drop here pretty soon. But Infinite Ascent is a heavy tome. I think as far as like the content is concerned, like what it touches upon, it's a pretty emotionally heavy book. Spoiler alert, it does focus more on one of the ancillary characters, not Redder. And it does it takes a deeper dive into some of the more, how do I say it, mystical things that happen in his work. So for people listening who like the Soulfinder series, I think you're going to really like this one. I mean, he really does put a lot of the faith-based stuff in it, but a lot of action and adventure, a lot of rock climbing and stuff like that. So go on Amazon and check it out. The link is in the description for this video. As a quick update, let's talk about Tyler's book real quick before we talk about Common America. So Tyler has The Girl with the Megafists Volume 2. I put the link in the description below too. If you just look at Kickstarter sales from his previous volume compared to this one, he is going to easily surpass his Volume 1 in a matter of days. He's only, I think, 9 backers away from beating his previous goal, and he's like, I don't know, like less than maybe like 200 or 300 from beating your monetary
700. I think I barely
last year.
crossed 8,000 last time, so I'm 700 away.
Yeah, so you're very, very close. And you still have about 18 or 19 days left, don't you?
Yep.
So that's easily a surmountable feat. So we want to say congratulations
Thank
to
you.
Tyler. We mentioned it last night on when I was with him. So if you guys are not familiar with his channel, he has a great channel called Draw and Talk where he covers a lot of topics. It's a smorgasbord of every subject imaginable, from business to marketing to comics to manga to anime. But he and I had a really long talk last night. And one of the things that we mentioned was the one thing that I like hearing people say is they say, hey, Tyler, I bought your book because I heard Tim Lim talk about it, but more specifically, they don't talk about like the story or anything like that. They talk about the business, and they say, this guy has his track record of, this guy has a sweet deal. And I'll admit it right now on stream. There's not many people who can compete with us as far as our price point is concerned. We offer 64 to 72 pages, hardcover, already finished, so that it minimizes the risk and it maximizes the quality for the physical, objective things that we can measure. Tyler's offering a 200-plus page book for $15. He's the only other person that can match us price point wise as far as this market is concerned. So when people buy your book based on that objective metric, that makes me happy, because I'm like, that's something I'm proud to point out, because it's like, if you want someone who is trying to do the same thing that we're doing, which is actually use concrete business strategies to try and get people to take a look at your work, that's how you do it correctly. So make sure to check it out. From what I've seen, all the reviews from his previous volume have been unanimously positive. And what I've noticed is that you typically have like that sophomore slump where a lot of indie creators, for one reason or the other, their second volume typically doesn't do as well as the first. And you actually saw this in the 90s during like the comic book boom. You would have like this huge influx of people for number ones, and then on the number 2, it's just, it just dips down. Well, and for the longest time, people would say, well, that's just to be expected. But we're noticing now that depending on how you conduct yourself business-wise in crowdfunding, it's kind of the opposite, where you'll typically start off with a molehill, and as you get better at it, and you're able to come in on your promises, you should be growing, and that should be either through your backer number or through the money that you raise. And so, seeing your growth in the Grow with the Megafist, going from Volume 1 to Volume 2, if nothing else, the one thing that you are doing absolutely correctly is you're growing based on a confidence that the reader has. And I think it shows that they're coming back to buy it because there's that reliability built into it. So we want to say congratulations, and obviously thank you for having us on to promote. Yeah. We talked a little bit before the stream. Last time I had you on, I think I got you 7 backers total. So our platform is much smaller than yours, but anything we can do to help you out is great.
One of my favorite though compliments is when people go, "I found your stuff. I found you because either a stream you did with Tim, or like even Mark tweeted, this week was really nice, saying, "Oh yeah, Growth of Megafist done by a great creator." Like that stuff like that makes me happy. Or when people go, "Oh, my favorite books are Common America, Soulfinder, and Growth of Megafist," I go, "Oh, that's my book." It's good to be surrounded by creators that I'm friends with, but then like it's like they know me not just because like one, I can tell a good story, but it's like also I'll respect you as a customer. Like I'm gonna get you. I'm like. One thing I love that you guys do with Iconic Comics, it's almost, and I like your slogan. It's like be original, but it's you're coming out with content consistently, and that's something that we actually don't see a lot in R&D scene is we see these campaigns and then they go on for like 2-3 years, then maybe you'll get the book. And you guys are constantly pumping out books. And I remember when I started doing The Girl with the Mega Fist, I was like, okay, well, I want to pump out books. I want to tell a good story. I want to get it at a good price, and I want to fulfill on time. So it's like, how do I figure that out? And it took a couple months of logistics, but it's like, yeah, now at this point, I'm doing 2 volumes a year, each volume 200 pages, each book $15. We're fulfilling on time, and it's just. And when people go, how do you do it? It's like, you just have to be at your drawing table.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the only secret. So I always appreciate it when people go, oh, I found your stuff because of Mark and Tim, and they said good things about you. So I appreciate that.
Well, it's our pleasure. And like I said, our platform is tiny compared to yours. So I don't know how much help it will be, but if we can get you a few people, we can vouch for you definitely based on the way you conduct business. And I think in this sphere that we work in of crowdfunding, where it's already a very ambiguous place where there's uncertainty in terms of if you're going to actually get something or not, I think being able to tell people, no, like, we know this guy and the book that he personally puts out is going to make it to you, then that's something that we're able to actually put a seal of approval on and say, that's definitely something that you're going to get. So
Alex
for people,
from Kersoba's in the chat, and he says he just got, and he says he just picked up Girl with the Mega Fists, so there's one.
Awesome.
I appreciate that.
Thanks,
Thank you. Hey, even if I get 0, 1, or 2 backers, I'm here to have a silly goose time, guys, tonight. That's what I'm here for. I appreciate everyone.
For people who don't know the general story of the Girl with the Mega Fist, it's about basically an ethereal world where the gods have to choose a champion to send down to Earth. And so the current champion, her name is Ileana, and she's only allowed to bring one companion with her. And it just happens to be 2 boys. You get some drama going on there. And she has to decide which one she wants to choose. One of them is actually someone that she loves and has a connection with. But the other one is probably the more compatible person who she's actually going to kick ass with if she takes him along. So it's their journey through the training and the decision that she has to make as she descends to Earth. And like Tyler said, he's on volume 2 right now. The first volume was 200 plus pages, and the current volume is 200 plus pages, which, for reference, right now our output for Black Ops Common America 1 and the 2 volumes of Common America we put out a year, it is at the most 236 pages. So that means that he has doubled us in terms of quantity, which is amazing.
Just quantity, guys. That's it. Just quantity.
The quality part is subjective, obviously, but yeah.
And the book is 100% complete as well.
100% complete. It's in black and white. It has a manga aesthetic, so for a lot of your readership, it's not going to matter because it's like, well, read manga anyway, which is black and white. So what does it matter if it's in color or not? Which is awesome. That's a really, really great business model. So you're going to get a hefty tome for $15, which is very comparable to what you get nowadays on shelves anyway. So can't beat that price point. It's a really good deal to have over there. Is there anything else you wanted to add about your book?
Rob Kiro put in the chat, he says, and showcasing a 90-page fight scene is pretty impressive. Yeah, in volume 2, I have a 90-page fight scene. And I'm very proud of it. It's very fun.
That's insane. I could not draw a 90-page fight scene. Thank God. I will say this, Tyler. So I was reading One Punch Man, and there is a fight, actually still ongoing right now. That damn thing has lasted like 3 volumes.
Oh, is it the Gara one?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's completely bananas. I was like, what is this? This is like a Dragon Ball Z.
It's still going.
It's still going.
Yeah, I don't think I could do it for 3 volumes, but I was like, I can do 90 pages.
I think if it wasn't Murata doing the art, I would have given up on it. But it's the fact that I study it so religiously.
What's great is he can just do like a 2-page spread of like one moment, and you're like, wow. Like,
yeah, he did a 2-page spread of like an aircraft carrier being torn apart by like a punch. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy.
Aren't they ending One Punch Man? Isn't it winding down at this point? Because they're basically out of ideas. They realized, oh yeah, we can't really take this character much further than we've already taken him. So
I heard the opposite.
I think it's my personal opinion is that they're focusing a lot on the ancillary characters, which I don't mind, but it's almost gone too far where it's like I have not seen Saitama in over 3 volumes. Mm-hmm. Like he's in the underground lair right now with a little monster dude, and I'm like, It's called One Punch Man. Like, when's this guy gonna come
Yeah,
back?
where is One Punch Man?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think I'm in the minority. People seem to really like it. DA Talks is in the chat. He says, yeah, we're being tired of being paid nothing. Hey, I'm supposed to be bribing you. I know. I'm really sloughing off here. Sorry. Send you your paycheck here pretty soon, Dean. My gosh. War Shark Productions says, is there a way to order Common America issues 1 through 5? I'm really interested in the series and want to get caught up. So the best way to do it is to buy the omnibus on iconiccomics.com. The omnibus will contain volumes 1 through 4. If you don't mind reading digitally, we offer it on Amazon Kindle. Or you can go to the current campaign, Common America Volume 6, and you can add the books digitally there. They're $1 cheaper per book, so you actually save about $5 compared to Amazon, but you can go on Amazon right now and buy it instantaneously to get caught up. And the same is true for the crossover with Black Ops from last year, even though it is not required reading. You don't have to read Black Ops to understand what's going on in our book. Rob Kuro says, if I may ask, you guys don't have any hardcover books in the Iconic Comic Store? No, we do. The only problem is I think some of them are sold out. I think Volume 5 just sold out last week. So I know that they have about 200 books in stock in the warehouse, but they are the ones who have to make the logistics decision on whether to put them out or not. Because sometimes they like holding onto them for personal promotional stuff. Because the guy who runs the Iconic Comics brand, like the owner of the company, he does a lot of public relations functions and whatnot, so he likes to be able to offer people things. They also do a lot of conventions where they want to make sure that we have inventory for physical appearances and stuff. So if not, if you can't get a hardcover, we don't reprint those, so you're just going to go to eBay to score some of those. Let's see here. Mitrick Gaduk says, I'm a huge collector, so digital really helps to keep everything pristine. Yes, it does. And they're very durable as well. Oh my gosh, I can't believe. Can you make NFT copies? No, we don't do that. Don't get me wrong, I don't really have a hard opinion on NFTs. I did one. I honestly don't understand how they work, but I think I sold one for like $200 in Ethereum, which I think is good. But I'm of the opinion right now, which I guess is kind of ignorant, but I'm of that mindset where it's like I don't understand how an NFT is any different than, like, I don't know, saving a normal image with a right click. But apparently I'm a boomer because people do think that there's actually like a worth to it. So okay. That's all I can say about that. Let's see. Do you see anything in the chat that I need to address real quick, Mark? Oh, here we go. VME Hey, have you thought of regrouping some of the tiers of the campaign specifically to make available more of the high and sold out tiers, Capybara, Calendar, and Comic? No, we can't do that because all of our things are pre-bought and they're bought and limited. If we go back to production, you're looking at about 3 or 4 months. So everything has to be done in a certain way. Once I create the tier on Kickstarter or Indiegogo, it is locked. I can't reallocate, let's say, more of the capybaras and the calendars as a combined item. They have to remain separate because that's the way they were created. So I know that tier has sold out, but the individual capybara is still available. And I haven't looked at Indiegogo in a while. I actually don't know.
We have 4 of the maquettes left, but only on Indiegogo. And that was the last time I checked, which is probably like a few hours ago. So if anybody was holding out for the Common America resin maquette, there are only 4 left and only on Indiegogo. They're probably not going to hang around that much longer, so you may want to check those out. And I know that's probably one of the reasons why the question was asked, was that if we could, create more inventory. And like you said, Tim, it's because that'll end up delaying the fulfillment. And I know that we did that for those softcover special tiers of Soulfinder on the Black Ops X Soulfinder campaign. But that was in emergency printing, and those people who got that tier, they ended up getting fulfilled last because there was no choice to fulfill those.
No, and I don't even think they've been fulfilled yet, because I think last time I talked to fulfillment, they still have about more than 1,000 copies that still need to go out. So that's been a slow trickle. We're still on track for the fulfillment date, which is in October. So last time I talked to them this morning, it's like, no, we're still working on that fulfillment. So conceivably, I think October, November, you're just going to see a slew of these books going out kind of all at once. The good thing is that all the Common America stuff is in, and it is a leaner campaign. I mean, it's just the capybaras, the calendars, the maquettes, and then the books. There's no physical omnibus, and there's no physical volume 5, which is great because it'll keep that fulfillment very easy in terms of how streamlined it is. Philip Cummings is here. He's actually on, if I'm not mistaken, I think he's on deployment right now. So we want to thank you for your service. We pray and hope that you're safe.
What's up, Phil?
Yeah, thank you for being our friend for all this time. We've actually hanged out with Phil on 2 occasions. He actually met us at a Comic-Con in Arkansas earlier this year, so we actually got to spend a lot of time together. And Phil, like a lot of people, like Vicky and Dean and some of these other people that we know, they've known us for about 6 years, and being able to retain those friendships for such a long time is a blessing and a joy. So we're very happy, but most of all, we want to make sure that you're safe and you're enjoying your deployment over there. But the safety is the most important part, for sure. Let's see here. Will we get a line of plushies for the Black Ops squad in the future, other campaigns? We actually did a plush USAGI, and so that's come and gone. I think the next one we're going to work on Patriotter, so that will probably be offered for the summer campaign if we play our
Patriotter. I can add it.
Yeah, he's ready to go to the I don't know, to the club. He has his biker vest on.
This was upstairs for the longest time, and I had family come over to go, what is up with this bunny? Why does it have this tactical leather jacket? And I was like, oh, this bunny like cuts people's necks. And they're like, you're a parent? And I'm like, shut up.
There was a thing that Jim Tooner brought up. I think he's replying to someone else. Said, yeah, it was out of ideas a long time ago, but like most manga, sales will decide when it ends. The other thing that I think we'll touch on real quickly is Tyler and I, and there's some other people that we talk to, like Bill Williams and obviously Brian Ball. We like talking about some of the business stuff because we're always trying to come up with these little tiny things that we can do to improve either the quality of our work or the price point or the product that we get that comes in. And one thing Tyler and I were laughing about recently was we were like, man, about like a year ago or earlier this year, we were talking about manga, and it's like there was a huge debate on like what can you learn from manga, and there were people who were like, you can't learn anything from manga. Like,
you're idiots.
Quit. Yeah, you're idiots. Quit talking about it. And I was like, funny thing is that from what I've heard, this person is like, oh yeah, like there's a lot of things you can learn about manga. And I'm like, you gonna credit us for that, or are you gonna be like some of these other people and just like take our ideas and not talk?
There was another like different person than that who I was actually watching a stream this morning, and they were like, oh yeah, like I'm trying to do like a more manga thing, and I'm like, I swear you totally like ruined my life last year.
Yeah.
And like now you're saying all this stuff. Like I was talking to my wife, and I was just like, babe, can you just admit that I'm kind of ahead of the curve on everything? And she was just like, well, yeah. I was like, yeah, that's why everyone thinks I'm crazy. But yeah, it's like funny. It's like conversation that we had either a year or two ago. People are now having them right now, and it's like and when they bring it to their audience, it's like groundbreaking.
Yeah.
But they would demonize us like a year or two ago.
I don't know what Vicky and Dean would say about it either, but like basically since, what would you say, Mark, a year and a half, we've been calling our campaigns pre-orders. Even though they are technically campaigns because they're done through platforms, we call them pre-orders because it's like everything's done. So essentially the mentality is they're pre-orders because you're guaranteed.
It's because it's a guarantee that you're going to get your book because the book already physically exists. So you just basically reserve your copy, and then when the campaign's over, we ship your copy.
Well, and then people start using the parlance of pre-order, and like I said, when it comes to business, we don't have these ideas copyrighted or trademarked, so pretty much anyone can adapt our model or whatever. But there's always that part of us that's like, okay, well, we know that people look at what we do, but they don't like us, or they might be like, I don't want to give those guys any credit. So it's kind of hard to tell. So it's like, look, if it works for you, that's fantastic. But we do appreciate it from every now and then whenever someone does, give us the credit where it's like, nah, I got this idea from them. Because we do the same thing too. It's like our box idea, we got the idea from Doug TeNapel. I mean, crap, I'd say like probably 45% of our business model comes from Doug TeNapel. Doug TeNapel is like basically like the Lexus of crowdfunded books, and we're like the Toyota.
Well, that's why we give him a shout out in Kamen America 1.
Right.
Well, frick, gosh, if you guys are a Toyota, I'm like Uber, but not like Uber, but like not Uber Black. I'm just Uber. Maybe not even Uber. I'm Lyft.
You're Lyft. Yeah.
Yeah.
but no, because isn't Lyft more like pretentious? Because like, Uber, we're Lyft.
No, Uber's more pretentious because they have Uber Black, which is like you can get like an SUV and not a Toyota.
I didn't know what Uber Black was. I was like, is that like a race?
Yeah, Uber Black is like their premium. You're like, I want to look good when I have you drive me.
No. If you're like, how do I? Dang it, I don't know enough about cars to not be insulting. But it's like you have Lexus, Toyota. Like, what would Tyler be? Tyler would be like
Porsche.
Like
Someone put a yellow cab.
Like a Camry. So it's like you're in the Toyota. You're like in the Toyota brand, but you're like a Mica model. I don't know. That's a terrible analogy. I'm not good at this. I suck.
You're a Kia Sportage.
A Kia Sportage. Kias are good cars. What are you talking about? Solid Halon says we need Eliana plushies. So okay, I don't think Mark will mind me talking about this. So there are times when I create merch, and it's not because I like it. I create it because people ask for it. And Mark was like, you need to work on a Kamen America plush. And I was like, we have one. It's Badger. And he's like, no, I mean like her actually as a plush toy. So he showed me like apparently Makeshift makes a lot of them. And I was like, no one's going to want this because it's not like an animal.
Is it like a chibi version of the character?
Yes. Yes. And so he showed me that, and I was like, oh my gosh. But it turns out it's really popular. So we are working on a Kamen America plushie at some point. That is going to happen. So you can rest assured. So someone has beaten us to it as far as the suggestion is concerned, but with Eliana. So you might as well write that down, Tyler.
All right. I'm going to add it to that notes.
Yeah. And then you can ask Makeshift to do it, too. Makeshift, they run their own, basically like crowdfunding type thing, where you just, like in order for them to make it, you have to like have like 100 of them on pre-order or something.
Oh, so you can either go the crowdfunded way or you can just order 100.
Yeah, so what Makeshift does is they'll make it for you, but it's crowdfunded through them. And as long as you can make it to like 100, it's done. The only problem is that you don't get much of a cut because they're handling everything.
But do you have to do the crowdfunding aspect of them?
Yes, you do. So that's the downside to Makeshift. But they handle everything. Like,
fair.
They create everything for you. And you don't have to worry about it. So basically,
I mean, they're really big right now. It's like almost everybody who has either a web comic or an OC, and it's like a cute girl, they're doing just those kind of like chibi Makeshift plushes, and they're done in like these pre-order flash sales for like limited time reservation, and they're having huge success with those. So like, geez, we do one of Carly. If it does really well, maybe we'll do one for the rest of the Common Core. You know, like everyone can have a Misha and a Kimiko and a Sylvia. And they'll be scaled very weird with their giant Badger plush. So it'll look like Badger is like 9 feet tall compared to them.
Have you watched Cyberpunk Edge Runners yet? I like Studio Trigger a lot, but I don't know anything about Cyberpunk.
I never played the video game, so I feel like I don't know if I'd be lost or not trying to watch that show.
It's like I wanted to watch SSS Gridman because Trigger did that one too. I watched 3 episodes and I was like, I have no clue what's going on. But it's beautiful animation. Like, don't get me wrong. I like everything that Trigger does. Everything. I think they have a very, very great visual style. They're like an animator's animator, and they have like an appeal for pretty much anyone who watches their stuff. I still think that Darling in the Franxx, I think it's very underrated. Like, a lot of people are like, that sucks. Gurren Lagann's better. I was like, I think Gurren Lagann might have more overall broader appeal, but I think Darling in the Franxx is like a masterpiece of storytelling from their perspective. So that's my personal opinion. This is I'm just gonna bring this up. I'm not gonna read it, but Fizchozo makes this comment. The answer is no, because we have to keep our property family friendly. We do get a little bit risque in terms of some of the art and stuff that's done. Obviously we have like a swimsuit calendar, but We try to keep everything PG-13. So I know that was probably like just meant to be funny, but in case anyone was wondering, no. And that's also the reason why we
can't
don't
like or retweet really, really spicy or weird Common America fan art. We appreciate any and all fan art, but if we don't like or retweet yours and it's very explicit, that's why.
Yeah, there's certain things that we just can't endorse. We've seen some of it. Honestly, I would say like I've seen maybe 8 pieces, and I think I've seen 2 where I was like, "Whoa, the art is like really good, but crap, I'm not gonna share that. Like that's disgusting." We can't endorse certain things. Like obviously, even if it was like good, quote unquote good, and I clicked like, I mean, the next thing is the person's gonna be like, "Oh my gosh, like the creator liked my work." It's like, I just wanted to be polite. In reality, I think it's kind of gross and it's kind of antithetical to the character, but you know, we're not gonna put the hammer down when it comes to the proliferation of it. We obviously just don't endorse it at all because I think
you can't fight Rule 34 fan art. I mean,
it's gonna happen.
That
happens to guys and girls,
so.
whether you like it or not. But obviously, we can't put our seal of approval on anything. Misha in a Nightgown, Volume 6. Anyone? Yeah. There is a shot of Misha in a nightgown. That's pretty much as spicy as it's gonna get, as far as like the artist.
And it's like, is that even spicier? Or is that just her pajamas? Like that's just day-to-day stuff.
The funny thing is that, so you know how this works, Tyler. As an artist, I mean, like for example, if you ever, I've never taken, like I didn't go to art school, but apparently one of the things is like you draw like live nude people. And so eventually, like, you've seen enough naked people in your whole life that this doesn't do anything anymore. It's like, you gotta try a little bit harder because, I mean, like, at some point, it's just the human body. And, like, growing up, you read X-Men comics, like, crap. Psylocke is just a nude woman with, like, a bikini painted on. So there's a point where it's like, as far as the aesthetic is concerned, if she's wearing, like, a nightie, to me, it's like, that's what some people wear, like, to bed. So it's like, okay, is this really
that's a layup.
It's a layup, yeah. Your mileage will vary. If you're like a 12-year-old boy and you've never seen that before, it might blow your mind. But if you're like a 22-year-old man, you're like, I've seen that.
I remember seeing like a Victoria's Secret like model magazine, and I'm just like, as a 12-year-old, I'm like, this is the coolest thing that has ever come into our mailbox. And then now I'm just like, so I'm like, you guys sleep in this? Put a t-shirt on. It's more comfortable. Winnie the Pooh it.
I remember that at our mall, the Victoria's Secret was like across from the KB Toys, and I was like, that is like how they decide like what will like turn up. That's like how you decide once you become like a young man. Is when you're at an intersection. It's like, do I turn right or do I turn left? Like, what do I look at here? But I remember like passing by the Victoria's Secret and being like, ugh. Like as a 7-year-old being like, oh, that's gross. Like,
yeah, then as a 17-year-old, you look at the Victoria's Secret and you're like, ooh. But then you look at the KB Toys like, ooh, Transformers.
Well, as a 17-year-old, you're still at the age where it's like, I can't even like look at that stuff because then people will think I'm a pervert.
Well, I always was like, how do I get in here? Because because logistically I can't go in there by myself, and I can't go in with a bunch of guy friends. Right. So anytime like I'd be with like one of my girlfriends, I go, oh Tyler, like I gotta go to Victoria's Secret real quick. I'll meet you at GameStop. I'm like, oh, I mean,
hey, this is a Mormon joke. Girlfriends, like, were you dating multiple girlfriends?
Just friends. We have multiple wives. One girlfriend, multiple wives. You can't be dating too many people. That gets confusing.
No, we gotta put a cap on that.
Yeah, exactly. Not on the wives. We don't put a cap on the wives, but dating pool, hey, knock it off. Like one. Yeah, just a friend. I just remember her going like, I was just like, I'll come in. It's no problem. I don't have anything at GameStop. And she's like, are you sure? It's kind of weird. I'm like, trust me, I don't think it's weird. And I just remember being like, I remember going there and every other guy, we all had the same face of like, I don't want to look excited, but I am. But I also have to look semi-confused on how any of this stuff is working.
Yeah.
And so it was, but then you would see like the one older guy in there, and you're like, what's this guy doing? And
yeah,
he'd be like,
what's his deal?
I'm trying to find something for my,
for my wife.
She's 70. Need something with some baggage. Yeah.
And then they're like, Mr. Smith, you're not even married. It's like,
Like,
shut up.
Call the home. He's escaped again.
So when you went to a shopping mall, were you that guy that accidentally walked too far into the Spencer's Gifts and got to the back of the store? And you're like, oh no!
Oh, that happened.
Oh,
to me
how
one
did I
time,
get
and
in
felt
here?
So bad. To this day, I have never made it to the back of that Spencer's because I'm like, oh my gosh, like I don't. Well, one,
just
I don't,
like
I'm not.
you go into the entrance of the store, and if you're not ready for it, you go into the entrance store. They go, oh, it's like a cool hot topic, and you look at the shirt and it says like "fuck you," and you're like, oh,
Well, yeah, it's like you walk in, you're like, oh, cool, G.I. Joe T-shirts, and then you just like walk 2 more feet, like, oh wow, dildos. What happened? Where am I?
I want to like one of these days. I think at one time, like when my wife and I we were first married, we were walking through the mall and we were like, I was like, hey, have you ever been to Spencer's? She was like, no, and I went, oh my gosh, yes. And so we're like going to the entrance. I'm like, don't you think this mug's kind of funny? She's like, yeah, it's funny. I was like, I wonder what's in the back. And she's like, and she was like, have you never been in here? I went, no. And we go to the back and I go, what is all of this sick things? I kind of look at her face to see like, okay, where are you at? Like, where are you at? And look at all this stuff. And she goes, this stuff is disgusting. And I'm like, damn it. I'm like, damn it. Yeah.
I really wanted to buy those glow in the dark condoms.
Oh, I was like, can you believe that these are Halloween costumes?
Did you mean it's all in the intonation? Did you say like, look at all of this sick stuff, like disgusting, or is like sick as in dope? Like,
No, I was like, it was sick, gross, and she like looked at it and she was all like, yeah, this is really gross. And then I was like, dang it, I needed her to go like, oh, like this is kind of cool, and I'm like, yes, because you never want them to know it that you're as nasty as you are.
The problem, Tyler, is so where we live in Little Rock, Arkansas, and it is like Springfield from The Simpsons. If you've lived here for more than half a year, there is no way you're gonna be in public and not run into someone you know.
It's
like,
that small.
It's not that it's small. It's that your chances of running into the people that you know, either personally or through work, is very high. Like, there's no way that you can be in the mall and not run into someone. And so, like, I always have that funny clip of Abe Simpson, like in The Simpsons, where he walks into like that strip club that Bart is like the bouncer for. Where Abe Simpson comes through the front door, he's whistling, and he puts his coat and hat on a stand, and he's whistling, and he sees Bart, and he just makes a U-turn and goes right back out. Like, that's what's gonna happen. I mean, it's like you don't want to run into people that you might.
There's a similar joke in like Mormon culture. I'm just gonna say Mormon. We go by Latter-day Saint, but like everyone knows Mormon.
Yeah.
But like you never want to be watching a rated R movie in the theater and then also catch like your bishop there. Which that's happened. I remember watching and I was just like, I should not be watching this movie. And then I like looked over and I was like, but I know you, and you're here too. So I'm
are you both
solid.
sitting there like with one of those giant like buckets of like soda pop, and you're both in trouble, and like, oh no, I won't tell if you don't.
Yeah, exactly. Except it's my bishop, so I'm like, yeah, you better let me get away with a couple of those things. I'll rat you out in front of everyone.
I'll tell you one of the it's kind of a cognitive dissonance thing, but it's probably less so with Doug, but it's more so for us. But you'd be surprised at how many like priests go to Comic Cons, like, and the reason is that when I was like growing up,
are they not allowed to?
No, they're allowed to.
Okay.
But that's the weird thing, because I remember as a child seeing like our priests at like Walmart buying toilet paper. And I would just be like, what the crap? And my mom would be like, priests have to like use the bathroom too. And I was like, yeah, oh, but that's weird. Like, it's weird because it means they wipe their butts. And it's like, yes, like they're human beings.
That reminds me, when I was like a really little kid, like we're talking like first grade, I remember the first time I ever saw one of my teachers outside of school. It was like at the grocery store. And I just remember that feeling really weird. Like, I guess in my head, I just assumed that the teachers lived at the school. They just never left. So when you see one, like, out in the wild, you're like, what? Whoa, you can leave the school?
How'd you get out here? Where do you live?
we know at least 4 priests who go to comic conventions around Arkansas, and they're young. They're like in their 20s, and one of them we've actually had dinner with, and our parish priest, the guy that we met with Doug and Brian and stuff. We had dinner with him one time. He's just this funny guy because it's like, what are your hobbies? He's like, I love metal. It's like, oh, like metal working? That's cool. And he's like, no, like music. And it's like
Slayer.
Yeah, like Slayer. And I was like I didn't want to ask that question. And he was like, I know what you're gonna say. He's like, what about like Judas Priest? And I was like, yes. And he's like, I don't agree with their name. Like, I think their name is kind of bad, and I don't agree with some of the lyrics of their music, but their other songs, like, whoa, that's like super cool. It's like so fun to bang your head to. And talking to some of our friends who are like Catholic apologists and stuff, they're like, no, I mean, like, the rules still apply for a priest. They have hobbies. Like our parish priest, he loves NASCAR. Like whenever he has vacation time, he'll go to like Talladega to watch NASCAR races.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And so it's like, no, like we're human beings. We do the same things that you guys do, but obviously it's within reason. Like there are certain things that you don't watch and you don't read. But it's funny because like the priest in the town next over, his name's Ben Riley, and the guy's like 24. And I've always wanted to ask him, it's like, are you actually like, do you know like that's actually a Spider-Man character? So I asked the priest that we had dinner with. I was like, did you go to class with Ben Riley? He's like, yeah, we were in seminary together. And then I was like, does he know? And he goes, yes. You actually might see him at comic conventions because I think that was by accident that he just happened to be like the name of Spider-Man's clone. But he actually apparently he actually collects like Ben Riley merchandise because he just thinks it's funny, and he has like an affinity with the character.
It makes me think of like Matt Murdock, Daredevil, in the Marvel comics, where he's like, I am a devout Catholic. Now to put on my devil costume and go beat up ninjas.
Hey, I'll tell you this funny story, Tyler, because you're not Catholic, and so for people out there who might not know this, it's my biggest pet peeve, and I think it's Doug's too. I hate it in movies whenever a person goes to the confessional, and they do this. They're like, Father, forgive me for I've sinned, and the priest's like, tell me your sins, son, and he's like, do you know what the measure of a man is? When he's been beaten to the ground, and he doesn't know where to go, and he looks up, and like this freaking like 10-minute long monologue. I was like, you have obviously not talked to a real Catholic about how
you guys don't do that.
We don't do that. The way it works is literally like in The Simpsons, where Homer goes to confession for the first time, and he's like, forever forgive me for I've sinned. I've beat off like 1,000 times. Like I kicked a puppy down the street when I know you're not supposed to do that. I murdered a dude.
If you start like monologuing like in those movies,
they'll tell you to hurry up.
Like, could you hurry it up? There's literally a line right outside.
Yes, because like if you need that type of thing, that's a separate thing. That's spiritual guidance. Like that's the guidance counseling. But like when you're at the confession, it's just a laundry list of stuff that you just need to like get off your chest.
Just air it out.
Yes, I hate it whenever it happens all the time. Whether it's like NCIS or CSI or any drama you can name, Daredevil, like
because they have like in-depth conversations, and the priest is like, "Tell me more."
Yeah, tell me more. It's like no, like if you do that, a priest will be like, "Hurry it up!" Like, are you like I'm here to literally like grant you absolution in my power and in my position as a priest. I am not here to listen to you monologue about life.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I'm just here to tell you how many Hail Marys to do.
Exactly, pretty much. That's how that works. So yeah, for people who wonder about that, it's kind of like physicians whenever they watch like House MD or ER or whatever, or Scrubs, they'll be like, dude, working in the hospital is not like that.
Well, like I remember my cop friend, and I'd be like, yo, you can just run the
what
DNA.
Friend?
My cop friend.
Oh, your cop friend, okay.
And I'm like, oh, you just like run the fingerprints, and he's like, that takes months. And I'm like,
oh, dude, Mark has a story about that. He got robbed. Like this dude, he pulled off Ghetto Mission Impossible. It was his next door neighbor, where his next door neighbor crawled up into the communal attic space of the apartments, kicked through Mark's roof, and stole his computer, his television, and like this boot full of quarters. So Mark calls the cops, and obviously there's like a scene, and Mark is like, dude, they stole my computer and stuff, and they opened the door after they busted through my roof. Like, can't you dust for fingerprints? And the cop was like, what do you think this is? Like a freaking like TV show? Like,
this is CSI.
He's like, what do you think? Like, this isn't Scooby-Doo. Fingerprints? There's no such thing as fingerprints. That's all just movie magic. And they just, like, left. I'm like, oh,
Did he
okay,
really,
well,
though, come
thanks.
through the roof?
Yes.
Yeah, he kicked my ceiling in, dropped it down, and he just he got my TV, he got my PC, he got my old junk PC. So he rifled through one of my closets. He stole a roll of quarters. He stole this big glass boot that had some spare change in it. Like, and it was a guy I didn't know at the time. You know, when I got home from work and my place had been broken into, I didn't know at the time it was the guy in the apartment across from me. So
It was literally his next door neighbor.
Yeah,
But
because
he
my
came
next
through the-
door neighbor was a Section 8 house guy, and he had
But
like
he came
this
through the
laundry
roof
list
of your
Yes.
ceiling?
Yeah.
Yes.
He
Yeah.
deserved it. He deserved
Well,
to
I'll
get
tell
your
you
stuff.
I'll tell you a funny thing
He
was
earned it.
so Mark texts me and he's like, dude, I got my place busted into, and I only at the time I only lived less than like 2 minutes from his apartment, so I drove over. And then when I arrived, the neighbor is like outside of the apartment being interrogated by a cop, and I'll never forget it because the guy literally looks like the guy who plays Wally West in the Flash TV series. So it's like this like young black guy, and the cop is like, "You sure you didn't see or hear anything?" And the guy's like, "No, man, like not dog, like no."
I mean, I got him. He pled guilty to felony theft by receiving because what he did was the day that he robbed my apartment. Allegedly robbed my apartment because all I could get on him was misdemeanor theft by receiving. He took my TV to the pawn shop that was 5 minutes away, sold it for $75 under his own name. So when I was reporting everything stolen to the cops, I gave them the serial number on my TV.
Oh, they
Every
found
pawn
that thing
shop,
so quick.
Yep. They enter the serial number of everything they buy into a database for the police to see if it was stolen. So the police just ran that serial number and found my stolen TV, and then the pawn shop said who sold it to him, literally my next door neighbor. But because they couldn't prove, it would have been great if they took fingerprints, but no, they couldn't prove that he was the one who stole it, so all I could get him on was misdemeanor theft by receiving. But that guy had, when I was in court and he pled guilty, that guy had a laundry list of burglary charges where he was found guilty. Lots of misdemeanor theft by receiving, cocaine possession, heroin possession. The guy was just a career criminal. He was a Section 8 houser that the office just put in my building, so he was.
Is it like? Did you have to go to like?
criminal.
Is that considered small claims court?
Yeah, pretty much. I never
Like-
got my money back. So
Like Judge Judy? Oh, you didn't get
Yeah.
anything back.
I didn't get anything back. He owes me 70. So what happened was I went to the pawn shop. They had my stolen TV, and the pawn shop said I had to buy my TV back from them.
Shut up.
So I had to pay the pawn shop $75 to get my own TV back. And so technically all that I was out from this guy ripping me off was $75. All the small claims court could say is like, well, now he owes you $75. And like, okay, how do I get him to pay? You're like, I don't know. He'll just pay you when he feels like it. And, so I'm not gonna get paid
the
$75.
injustice in this freaking country sometimes.
Well, yeah, I never got. I mean, the TV was like the last thing that I wanted back. I wanted my PC back because I had a lot of files on there that weren't backed up, and my PC has never been located. So I mean, he either threw it away or he sold it and it got wiped, or I don't know what happened to it. It's somewhere out there. My PC's gone, and that has a whole bunch of like photos and files that I'll never get back, and like that pissed me.
It's like that's the stuff that you really cherish. Is like I remember. It's like the files. I remember I was in South Africa and this guy, he pulls out a gun and he's like, "Give me your camera," and I'm like, no, and he's just like, give me your wallet, give me your camera, give me your phone, and I'm like, in my head, I'm like, okay, I've got like a year's worth of photos that I haven't backed up in this SD card. So I'm like, as I'm handing him this like camera, I'm with my thumb like getting the SD card out. And then when we exchanged, he like grabbed the camera and I like held on with like my fingers on the SD card and then like pulled it away, and I gotta keep it. My wife is always like, Tyler, if our house burned down, what's the thing that you would be sad about the most? I was like, my hard drives, because it has all my comic work on it. Like everything else is replaceable.
Yeah, I started backing up everything after that because on that PC that got stolen, I was in the middle of writing my novel that I published a couple of years ago, but at the time I was still writing it, and I had 3 chapters that were just gone. I had to rewrite from scratch. And I remember that I was like, I felt like so much despair when that happened. I was like, should I just give up on finishing this book? I just lost 3 fucking chapters in my book. I was so pissed. But I was like, no, I'm just gonna start over. But now every time I do anything, I email the Word document to myself, so it's backed up in my email, so I have a copy of it there. I also save it onto a flash drive that I keep in like a drawer separate from my PC, and then it's also on my PC, so I've got like it backed up in 3 places, so I never lose anything again. But yeah.
What's your ceiling situation? Now.
My ceiling situation is I'm not gonna say in case any ne'er-do-wells are listening and they want to try and rob me again.
He's got it bolted and locked, guys.
Yeah, steel reinforced ceiling. Yeah, there we go.
Let's see. Someone put he also owes you a boot full of quarters.
Yeah, and so I had a roll of quarters that I had just gotten from the bank, so I could do my laundry. He saw that sitting there, and he stole that. And I mean the loose change in the boot is one thing, but that glass boot was a present from my brother's wedding. It was one of the wedding gifts, so I liked that glass boot. It was a nice memento from my brother's wedding, and that's gone. Like, and he only stole it because it probably only had like $8 of spare change in it, but. Yeah, the place that I was living at the time, when I first moved in there, it was fine. And then a couple of years after I moved into it, they decided to just open it up to Section 8 housing. And so a lot of crackheads and criminals moved in, and just like the crime rate in my apartment complex just skyrocketed. People were having their car windows smashed in the middle of the night so like, crackheads could steal like the change out of the cup holders, things like that. It was bad. There's a drug kingpin who lived there, and he took a woman hostage, and she had to jump off the 3rd floor balcony to get away. And his drug runner lived in the apartments in the breezeway next to mine. And I remember him walking his giant pit bull one day, and he asked me when I was getting out of my car if I'd seen anybody stealing packages, because he said he was having packages stolen off of his doorstep. And I was like, well, there's this lady with like dyed orange hair who I've seen like walking up and down the breezeways over and over again. I think she's looking for packages. Like, I was like, okay, I'll keep an eye out for her, because she was stealing like his packages had drugs in them because he's the drug runner, the drug mule, and she was stealing like the packages from him. And then one morning at like 6 a.m, I hear this huge explosion, and it wakes me up. I'm like, what the hell? And the SWAT team had taken their battering ram and rammed his door in, shot his pit bull, and arrested him. And I was like, oh god! Like I was just trying to wait out my lease so that when my lease expired, I could move. And
you could get out of there.
And didn't quite make it in time until I got robbed. It was like,
shame.
Yeah.
I got a question for you, Mark, about Kamen Academy.
Oh yeah.
Because one, I was bothering you guys on Twitter every time you guys posted.
Well, I listened to the show you did with Tim yesterday, where he was like, "How is this canon? How is this canon?"
And so now at this point, I'm like, do you just now that we all know it's a TV show, when you write Kamen Academy at this point, are you just going, okay, I'm writing kind of fan fiction that's real?
We can do so because it's a TV show within the comic. So the comic is the real world. So if you drop an anvil on Carly's head in Kamen America, she dies. But if you drop an anvil on Carly's head in Kamen Academy, it could have hilarious results. You know, that kind of thing. So we can be a bit more cartoony and goofy in Kamen Academy. It's a bit more anything goes.
Yeah.
So the webtoon, even when we did the previous webtoon, that was really just an outlet for us to do the kinds of like side stories that we didn't really have room for in the main series, just to do the kind of fun stuff that would amuse us with the characters. And Kamen Academy is just an extension of that. In fact, I actually sent Tim a script for 7 more installments of Kamen Academy this afternoon, so to keep him busy. He's
been slacking lately.
I know, right? Jeez, Tim, get it together. But yeah, Kamen Academy it's a lot of fun to write. It's a bit more challenging because I have to condense everything down into 3 or 4 panels and try to keep it to a page and try to write it. So we're using this style that Tim had me research from this manga called Happy Kaneko's Killer Life. and it's basically a 3 to 4 panel comic strip, but it's read in vertical bars. So it's like a page of a comic, but each panel is this horizontal bar that you read from top to bottom. And so I'm trying to maintain that formatting when writing my script, and that's just a new thing that I'm getting practice on.
That's a good.
Yeah.
Tim showed me that book, and I struggle. Like anytime someone goes, "How are you ever going to do a webtoon?" I'm like, I can't think vertical.
It takes some. You gotta. I don't know. You gotta get in the headspace for it, and it takes some getting used to.
So with Kamen Academy, are we gonna see like different villains in there?
So we have to keep everything canon, obviously.
Yes.
So people have already asked.
So it's like so it's like acting villains. Yeah, it'd be like.
So yeah, so people are already asking like, what's Hair Trigger doing? Because she appears in one of the early strips. Like, how is she there if she's a criminal who's in prison? And like, we're going to explain like how certain characters show up in Kamen Academy. If they're really those characters or if they're actors or not,
That's
we're gonna explore that, and we can do jokes because obviously this is a public access television show, so the production values are kind of low. So we can do some gags about like a boom mic like dipping into frame or stuff like that, or bad special effects. We can kind of just like play around with it, and so Kamen Academy is just kind of like an outlet for us to just have fun with the cast, and do these kinds of light stories that aren't as heavy as the main series.
And is it like, does it have a beginning, middle, and end?
Yeah, so we do have story arcs set up. So I was actually sending Tim a basic outline for what the first story arc is going to be. I don't want to give too much away yet, but we kind of set some of it up in the opening chapter. That it takes place in Oscar, Indiana. So it's going to also be the place where we can explore Oscar as its own location. Because people have probably noticed by now that in the main Kamen America volumes, they're always kind of traveling around the country. So they're usually all over the place. And they don't really get to spend a lot of time in Oscar. So Kamen Academy will give us an opportunity to actually explore the fictional town of Oscar, Indiana. But we established in the first Kamen Academy strip that there are 4 prestigious academies in Oscar, Indiana, and we haven't. One of them's Kamen Academy, but we're going to learn about the other 3. We also established that there's 7 wonders of Kamen Academy. One of them is that if you don't join a club on your first day, you die.
Yes.
And so, but what are the other 6 wonders of Kamen Academy? So we're going to be exploring a lot of the secrets and things. Yeah.
I love that. And then Tim, which version of Carly do you like drawing more? Kamen Academy Carly or normal Carly?
Normal Carly, because so for Kamen Academy Carly, she has to be wearing that Sukajan,
yeah,
that Letterman jacket. I don't like drawing loose fitting clothes.
Because you gotta get like the rolls and the
the physics and how clothing wraps around the human body and stuff. It's hard. It's difficult to draw. Whereas, like we were talking about before, when you're drawing like superheroes, essentially you're just painting clothes on top of them.
I like Carly's hairstyle though. I like the ponytail. I think it's
cute. I will say that in volume 7 that we're wrapping up right now, she is actually in the Kamen Academy form, like pretty much through the whole book, with the exception of like one fight scene. So.
Oh heck yeah! Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, a little bit of a spoiler alert. We talked about it last night, but there's something that takes place at the end of volume 6 and between volume 7 where there's a little bit of a time jump, not huge, but it's about 3.5-4 months. So for people wondering like how are they filming this TV show, it actually takes place in the intersegmental period.
Nice.
And now to the reader, it's not gonna seem like much has happened, but that's where they crammed all of that stuff in.
And someone last night asked a question, and I did not read it out, and I don't know why, but it's haunted me all day.
Okay.
That I was like, I did not ask that guy's question.
Okay.
Do you guys have any? Do you guys have any plans to add future girls to the team, or is this it?
I cannot answer that question.
Okay, guys, you guys know what that means.
Which means it's very open ended.
That's cool.
I don't know, Mark. Like, what's a polite way of answering it without giving out too much?
We will confirm that Kamen Siggy is coming. He's going to be
Kamen Siggy.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Okay, that's cool. I just was like, was like, man, I was just like laying in bed, and I'm like,
how about this? Okay, I'll say this, and it'll break a lot of people's hearts. We can't introduce a new person unless one of them is dead.
so you guys will only do 4.
Well, right now, is it 4?
Yeah, I know a lot of people kind of assume we're going to do 5 because, like, you know, the core Sailor Scout team is 5 members, and, like, the core Power Rangers are 5 members. But we are an American comic, and American hero teams tend to only be 4 members. There's 4 Ghostbusters, 4 Ninja Turtles, Fantastic Four. So it's kind of our way of doing, you know, the Tokusatsu team, but American style. So not necessarily 5. It's not a guarantee. That doesn't mean there may not be 5, but that doesn't mean it's a guarantee that there will be 5.
I'm liking the Kamen Lansky, Kamen gun, so I expect to see fan art now of Siggy in his own Kamen dress.
He's wearing
one of our Japanese friends, Noon-chan, he does the funniest fan art for us. And he always surprises us with it, and it always just... it just like puts me in stitches every time he draws one. Like he really likes drawing this character that we have called Kappa Kapu. That's the Kaneko-chan ramen mascot, who's that like weird googly-eyed ramen cup. Like, and he uses that as his avatar. And he draws these really funny Kappa Kapu as like a schoolgirl like running to school with toast in its mouth while Kimiko is like asleep in the top of the cup, or like one where it's going to a comic convention, so it has like the lanyard around its neck and like a convention bag. It just draws these really weird, funny things. Like we love seeing them.
Wait, how does that have to do with the male characters as the common core?
Oh, we're not going to do Kamen Kappa Kapu?
Oh,
is that too many Ks? That's the wrong number of Ks in the name. We can't do that.
Common Kappa.
Kamen
Oh
Kappa
my gosh,
Kapu.
no.
Too many Ks.
Yeah, nah. Oh, we can't do that. Ugh.
Oh, that's hilarious.
That idea.
Yeah, so I don't know if the person who asked is here over here, but I can now go to sleep knowing that I completed unfinished business.
I like that thing though that like you mentioned. Common gun.
That's awesome.
I like this too, Low Pro. I like the way you think. Sigmund can be tuxedo shot. Oh man,
people want a standalone of just like Siggy.
So I'm gonna address like an elephant in the room. Someone had mentioned they were like, when is the girl with the mega fist gonna cross over with Common America? And I think you and I had talked about this before, Tyler. But just as with Rags and Regina, that was a long process. I mean, think about it. Rags has been going on for close to almost 6 years. Could you believe that? Common America has been around for 2. So there's like this build-up. Basically, what it boils down to is it would have to conceptually be at a point where the stories would fit. Because right now, in Common America, there are no such things as alternate universes. They don't exist. I mean, originally, I didn't mind them as far as storytelling is concerned, because you always had like a prime universe. So, for example, you have the Age of Apocalypse, but the only reason the Age of Apocalypse exists is because it's a splinter from an event that happens in the prime timeline of the Marvel Universe. So there's always a precedence. There's always a knowledge that this is the prime world, and anytime there's an alternate reality, it's because something has happened and we got to fix it. We have to go back to that point and change it so that that reality doesn't exist. But it's gone to the point now where the Marvel Universe is like, nah, you have like an infinite number of parallel universes that all occur at the same time. And it's like, well, waters down your story, because it makes it so that essentially your character doesn't matter, because there's always a version of them out there.
Yeah, if you blow up Spider-Man Prime, it's okay. I'll just read Spider-Man Earth 2.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's kind of like, nah, I don't really care for that. So one of the rules that we came up with was, as far as our universe is concerned, there is no such thing as alternate universes, which means that as long as we're playing in our world, that has to be the rule. Now, in Brian's world, for Rags, he could have an alternate universe, and maybe you as a reader through the transitive property can be like, oh, well, by default, there are alternate universes. Well, yeah, if you're looking only at Brian's world, that's fine. But when he's in our world, no, it's all in canon and it's all in continuity. So, problem with Eliana right now is Eliana doesn't come to Earth until, what, Volume 6?
Volume 5. Yeah, Rob Kiro just said it. He said the perfect time for Common America and Eliana to team up is when Eliana goes to Earth. Yeah, she's like, someone even asked me, go, Tyler, do you think? And I was like, well, one, I would never ask Tim and Mark to do that because that's totally their property. So I'd only do it if they asked.
You're like Sylvia. You're like on your hands and knees, like please,
please. So it's like I would never ask. I would never ask out of respect. So I'd only do it if I was invited. But like even then, if you guys asked me today, I would be like, my character's not on Earth.
Right.
Like she's on this floating like Earth platform above Earth. So like it just wouldn't even make sense for both of us, and that would not be good.
It's the same thing with Doug Ernst and Soulfinder. We did not even broach the topic until we felt comfortable enough and we had introduced the spiritual element into our work, where we said, this is the angle. Like, this is the back door that we use to get Soulfinder in, where the readers won't think that it's implausible based on based on the tone of our works. I mean, you read Soulfinder, it's a completely different book as far as tone is concerned. So it's the same thing. Like I would say to Tyler, like when you get to that point where she gets to Earth, then we'll talk business, and then we'll actually see like where are our properties at that moment, and how can we conceivably fit it in? Because the same thing with Rags. Like we've always been thinking to ourselves like that would be kind of a dream if we could actually have this pairing happen, but it has to be at the right time.
And it took you guys a long time to like through the like Black Ops and in like. It was like you had to introduce all these elements very slowly until you guys could do this crossover that you guys did this summer. Otherwise, had you guys done that in like Black Ops in like 2 or 3, you'd be like, "What?" Like you could either just nod your head and go, "Oh, this is fun. I'm gonna ignore all the problems and build up that didn't happen because this is fun." The way you guys did it was smart, and the characters you picked for the crossover was smart.
That's a hard thing too, because in a crossover you kind of want to put the whole thing in there, and I'm like, nah, you don't save that. You save that for like the big event, like the crisis level scenario that you have going. But for this one, it's like, no, we wanted to tell an intimate story. In one way we did subvert expectations because it's called like Black Ops X Kamen America X Soulfinder, and she's literally in only 3 panels of the whole book.
But to be fair, Sylvia was a big part. Now, I will say my only beef with the crossover. I don't know if you can guess already what my beef was. It had
no USAGI in it.
That I didn't see my girl Penelope until like the last 2 pages.
Yeah. I felt bad.
I was reading. I was like, don't worry, she's gonna come.
All I'm gonna say is you're gonna see her a lot sooner than you think.
I'm excited. I literally was like, and you effers, you guys marketed it. By only showing that one panel that she's in. And
I know, and it's one of those things. So I forgot how Mark's the wordsmith. So he says it's not subverting expectations. It's
like
it's giving the customer something they didn't expect.
It's giving them something they didn't know they wanted.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because it was still it was still like a fantastic story, in the cast. How you guys chose the cast with the story was very strategic, and it would have only worked out because you had done all those volumes of Black Ops and Kamen America. So you wouldn't have been even able to tell the story you told without all those years. I just thought it was funny how I was like, you guys showed that one panel of Penelope with the mask. I was like, dude, her suit is so cool. I can't wait to see this. And then I was like, where is she?
I hate to say this, but it changes again.
Gosh!
The next time you see it, it's not even gonna look anything like that. Part of the reason we did that, this is a little bit of inside baseball. So, continuity-wise, it has to fit in with what Brian is doing with the Rags crossover.
Mm-hmm.
So, we have to address the fact that at the end of it, Versima says, what are you doing in my city? If you're a new reader, you assume that to be like, who are you and what are you doing here? If you have already read his book, you interpret that as, hey, you who I know, what are you doing in my city? But we put the mask there for plausible deniability, where it's kind of like, oh, well, she didn't recognize her because she has the mask on or whatever. Like, so that was done there strategically for that purpose, for storytelling.
Which, if you haven't read the Rags 8 crossover story yet, It came in with your digital downloads of Common America. Read that, think it's exciting, and then I would, if you want to, I would read Rags 1 through 7. It is very mature. I got the censored version through Antarctic Press, and it's still mature. You just censors all the boobies.
Yeah,
all the nudity.
Too. Some of the cuss words. If I'm not mistaken.
I don't think it does. I think it
doesn't. It leaves
you didn't get the Spencer's Gifts edition.
Yeah, but it's very mature. But all the stuff that is like, but still there's like really cool elements in it, and then it'll build off an 8, and then 8 is like 90%. Like, what is it? No, it's a complete 180. In terms of tone, like no nudity, like no swearing. And I think that's in respect to like your guys' character, everyone's characters.
There is a funny thing when Regina shows up in the crossover next year. People are like, "Are you gonna address all the swearing and stuff?" And it's like, "Oh, we got that covered," and it's gonna be funny. So,
are you gonna Scott Pilgrim it?
I'm not gonna tell people what we're gonna do with it, but we got it run through it. Brian, he thought it was really funny, so we were like, "Well,
hey, Brian thinks it's funny. We'll take it."
Yes. So Mitrik Gaduk says, Common America isn't the legacy, one of the best moments I've had with comics in the last decade. Thank you. In regards to the multiverse convo, in case this gets read later. That's another beef that Mark and I have, a big complaint, as we don't... I don't know. So initially, it's kind of cool, the idea of legacy characters, where it's like, oh, this person passes the mantle on. But one thing that we try to avoid like the commonly used tropes, especially the ones where it's like, hey guys, everyone's doing it, just quit doing it. Like, one thing that we tell a lot of people who work on our stuff, it's like, never use the word strong, independent woman when you're describing the character. Because it's like, don't get me wrong, those are all 3 valid adjectives, but it's the sequence that they're used in where it doesn't mean anything anymore. It's one of the reasons
it's the baggage that comes with that phrase. That people like, oh, strong, independent woman. I know what you mean.
And it's also the reason why. It's also the reason why we tell people not to use the elevator pitch, like, oh, it's X meets Y, like, oh, like my book is so good, it's Constantine meets Scott Pilgrim. It's like, don't do that. And we've had some pushback. There was a guy who's like, oh, I sell a lot of books at conventions, and this is exactly what I do. And I'm like, I could say something, but it'd be really insulting to like your audience, so I'm not gonna say it. But it's like, or you could maximize it by having your elevator pitch not rely on it. And because I'm like, think about how many people you use that pitch on who didn't buy your book because they thought that's dumb. Like, that's,
it's like Avengers meets Star Wars. It's like, I hate both of
those things. Oh, it's do you like Avatar? It's like, nope. Do you like Wild Stars? Nope.
I hate everything.
Yeah, it's like, nah, don't use that. Just think of the way to pitch your book without relying on like other things. But one of the things that gets me is with the legacy characters, like, how in the world can Spider-Man have a legacy character when it's like his circumstance was a 1 in a million thing, getting bitten by a spider? Not unless you find like another dude with the exact same set of circumstances. It's just not going to happen unless you do the next thing, which is introduce the multiverse, which we've already talked about. That's the reason why, like, as far as legacy is concerned, like, I think one that I would give exception to, or 2, or 3, and you'll notice a similarity between all of them. It's like the Phantom, Zorro, and Batman. They're all like these dark characters who
have no powers.
They have no powers. Like, nah, I want to beat up people.
I mean, if it's a hero like the Flash who has a history of training proteges, you know, like the Flash is cool as a legacy title because there's been lots of Flashes, one after the other, since the Golden Age, and there have been lots of reverse Flashes, one after the other, as their arch nemesis since the Golden Age. Like, that's built into that mythology. It works for that. But not every single character and every single character's identity needs to be a legacy. It's like Tim said, Spider-Man was something wholly unique to Peter Parker. It was from the Peter Parker experience that doesn't translate to other people unless you bring in the multiverse, in which now there's infinite Spider-Man and infinite Peter Parkers. Not even Peter Parkers. Now there's a Miles Morales and there's this or that, and it doesn't matter anymore. It dilutes. When everybody is Peter Parker, then Peter Parker just isn't special anymore. And what they often have to do, one of the things I don't like, is that they don't know how to build their new Spider-Man up without tearing the old Spider-Man down.
Oh my gosh,
so
yes.
you end up with something like Into the Spider-Verse, where Peter Parker is a fat, divorced slob. His wife left him.
Hey, I related to that guy.
You know, he's just this pathetic schmuck in that movie. And he's only that way in order to make Miles Morales look better.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you couldn't have built Miles Morales up on his own merits without having to tear Peter Parker down. You know, you couldn't have had them both be good, but that was the only way to build their legacy character. Was like, you don't want the old and busted Peter Parker. You want the hip new Miles Morales. And that kind of thing I can't stand. And that's unfortunately been the order of the day with a lot of legacy characters, because now the whole legacy thing has just been kind of just taken it, instead of being something special like it used to be with characters like the Flash and occasionally Batman, depending on the continuity. Now it's just like every title is a legacy title. Thor is a legacy title. It doesn't matter anymore.
We have Superman.
Wolverine is a legacy title.
You have Superman's son, and it's like he's like, I'm gonna be better than my dad, and I'm gonna do social justice. And I'm like, can you just? It's funny when that Son of Kal-El book came out, and everyone's like, there's a gay kiss. I was like one of the people who was like, yeah, like no, and I actually took the time this year to read it, and I was like, I didn't
stuff.
What?
And you like that stuff.
And I was like, hell yeah, like this is what I'm talking about.
I mean, so some identities are personal, and they're not. And that's when we did in Kamen America 3, where Sylvia gives that speech to Carly and hands her back her mask and tells her only you will be Kamen America. It was a way of telling our audience up front that Kamen America is not a legacy title. It's something that's very personal and exclusive to Carly. It'd be like if I got hit by a bus tomorrow and the world asked, who will carry on Mark's legacy? And Tim was like, I'll do it.
I am Mark Pellegrini.
I am Mark Pellegrini.
Yeah. It doesn't work that way.
Oh, that's fun. But yeah, like I was gonna say though, with the Superman, like they had to tear down his dad. He's like, my dad only punched people, and these people had, like, every villain he fought, like he would be like, don't punch him, he has a mental issue, and I'd be like, no, hit him, like he burned down a forest and killed a bunch of people, and they're like, he has anxiety, and I'm like, punch him, hit him, like yes, in the real world we'd help this person maybe, but in the superhero, like, hit him. And I don't think I saw Superman Son of Kal-El hit one person in the 70s.
It's the people who take that one stupid, like, that bad take that you see on Twitter crop up all the time. It's like, Batman isn't helping. He's just punching mentally ill people and throwing them in prison instead of giving them therapy. Like, it's a fucking comic book, and it wouldn't be very exciting if he wasn't going around and punching these crazy people. And most of them are mass-murdering psychopaths anyway who deserve to get clocked in the jaw. So, like, you would just want to write a bunch of boring comics if Batman's not doing that.
There's a... in the chat real quick. So, Crypto Comics, I have not seen you in quite a while. If you're still listening, I have that... video that we talked about earlier this year. If you don't mind, there's a part of me that's thinking that I should probably put it out simply because the dust has settled. So if you're still paying attention and you don't mind, just let me know. I know that we were kind of talking back and forth about whether or not to release it, but I don't know. I might decide to do it if you want me to, or if you like it. Luster Dog says, "I'll say it. X meets Y works in dumb normie sheep." That's He said it. I didn't say anything. Kitty Brown, I love Iconic Comics that buy everything. Common America is awesome. It's a
nice like butthole.
Yeah,
like as an avatar.
you have there. Let's see. Oh yeah, Doug Earns. One day. Oh, Doug's here. Tim and Mark will overhear some creator at a show pitch his book as it's Common America meets Doctor Who, and they'll both snap.
That is funny.
I'll pull a Zod on someone and snap their necks after.
That is funny.
That. Mark is getting my blood pressure boiling with his Spider-Man talk. I don't think I've ever made a video on it. I hate Into the Spider-Verse. Like, I completely hate that movie. But no, it's like a really unpopular opinion. So
that is a super unpopular opinion.
It's a super unpopular opinion.
I'll let you have that opinion because I'm an American.
I know, and you like it, but
you're wrong.
there's another thing I was gonna tell you, Tyler. Is I love you, man, but I've listened to some of your opinions on stuff, and I was like, I disagree with that, but I'm not gonna say anything because I think it's because Tyler's young. If I give him 8 years, he'll be like, "What the crap was I thinking?"
Wait, I want to know. Do you have one in mind?
I'll give you a quick one.
I'm ready.
And I think it's actually one that you and I talked about. You like Chainsaw Man, right?
Don't do this. Don't hash this out. Don't let us do this before the anime comes out.
I think if you wait 10 years, you're gonna be like us, where you're like, I just want to watch comfy slice of life anime. What is with all of this blood and gore? Why does he have to turn into a chainsaw and kill so many people? Like, so I don't think it's an opinion. I think it's a legitimate opinion, and I think I would agree with you if I were your age. But I'm older than you, and because of
I don't know if you're that much older though.
Because of age, I'm not gonna say how old I am.
Dude, I'm 20. I'm 29 and just filled with youth.
I'm 30. I'm 32 and filled with youth.
See, I'm like
Just kidding. I'm not 32.
Like I stand next to like I'm trying to hang out with the TikTokers. We're young, we're sexy,
You're hot.
we're hot, and we're just trying to dance and get money on Ethereum. That's what we're trying to do.
So there's some other takes that you had too. Oh, like who's your favorite writer for Batman? You like Scott Snyder, right?
I liked Scott Snyder.
I literally don't like anything he's ever written.
That
None.
I can agree with that because I only like his Batman run, and then everything else I try to read, I was like, this sucks, and then I was like, and then it got to a point, and here's the thing, I actually haven't reread it since I first read it, and so as I started reading more comics, and then I read his newer stuff, I'm like, wow, you are really overhyped, and now I'm almost scared to go back and read the stuff that got me into comics and go, it was actually trash.
I'll tell you one that happened recently, and it was Mark. Thanks, Mark. Mark was like, you ever reread the Ultimates? Like, that is not a good book. And I was like, what? Mark Millar? Like, yes, Ultimates was a great book. And he was like, yeah, at the time when we were like teenagers, it was awesome.
Because it's all gritty. It's all gritty, and you're like, yeah.
Yes.
And
yeah,
you pop culture references, and it's like, this Brian Hitch art, man. Can't you imagine this is a movie? You're like, this looks like a cinematic version of the Avengers. After we've had like 12 Avengers movies,
you feel like you're more adult and more mature. It's like when people. It's like when 12-year-olds go. Oh yeah, I read graphic novels. Oh, you haven't read The Watchmen? You read Baby Book. It's like
go back and read Ultimates 1 and get to the part where Hulk is screaming, "Hulk want Freddie Prinze Jr." and not cringe. Like I just kind of like wince and like crumple up inside like, oh god.
So the equivalent of it is I remember when Shrek came out, everyone kept on talking about it. They were like, this is the best movie ever. Oh my gosh, it's so funny. Because it like references like Smash Mouth or whatever, and you rewatch it now and you're like, I can't sit through this. Like it's painful.
It must be my age. I watched Shrek like 2 weeks ago and I was like, it's still got it.
That's what it is, Tyler. I really do think it's your age.
I don't want to be sad and miserable. I want to read Chainsaw Man and see blood and boobs. Don't take this away from me.
Yeah, and it's gotten to the point where like, so Mark and I mean, Mark definitely watches more horror movies than I do. But there was a time where I was watching a lot of horror movies, even really bad ones like The Ginger Dead Man. And now I'm at the point where it's like, I can't watch this stuff. Like, it's like my mortality is creeping up on me, and it's always just a constant reminder of like, man, like I could do this, or I could watch like comfy stuff with like cute girls and like hot boys, like, you know, doing just like normal everyday things. I did
like Mark posted on Twitter, and it did make me go, okay. Like you read a tweet and you go, okay. Where you put you were like, I was told to watch this movie and it's probably gonna be another A24 like overhyped horror movie. And I remember going, you shut your filthy mouth. Everything A24 has ever put out is amazing.
I just had a long conversation on Kinonomicon with Hot Dog and Nasser about. So the movie was X, which is an A24 movie. I didn't know it was an A24 movie until I put it on and that logo popped up, and I was like, oh no, because so A24 movies are just competently made horror movies that everyone acts like is just the greatest thing ever made. And it's like, geez, these are the most overhyped, overrated, pretentious.
Do you think it's because there's so much bad cinema that we watch A24 and you go, wow, this is filmed really well. When really,
like, oh, wow,
because everything else is Disney.
It's weird for horror movies because it's like, it's like designer jeans, you know, the Jordache jeans or whatever you're wearing, they're just as functional and identical as the Walmart jeans, but one has the label and one doesn't. A24 is just a label, it's branding, and the movies that they make are competent. Like X is a perfectly competent, perfectly mediocre slasher movie, but that's all it is.
It doesn't. So basically, you're saying it's just as mediocre as every other horror film, but because it has A24, everyone
acts like holy shit. Like they call it elevated horror, which just makes me want to like punch someone in the face whenever I hear that. They're like, this isn't horror, this is elevated horror.
I'm better than you.
Yeah, it's this idea that A24 is like this benevolent god that's plucking horror out of the gutter and like raising it above Pride Rock like the Lion King, you know, where it's like, I am elevating horror to, you know, a legitimate genre, where it's like horror was just fine without your mediocre Wicker Man knockoff, your Yas Queen Wicker Man Midsummer. It doesn't, you know, they're not doing anything. There are these other movies that I'm watching that have come out in the past like 10 years that aren't A24 movies, but they feel like they have more cerebral qualities to them that I would say would qualify for this like fictional genre called elevated horror. like It Follows, which is this really crazy idea about a sexually transmitted demon. And it's a really interesting concept for a film that I hadn't seen before.
The Cabin
that
in the
one,
Woods.
And it's got that allegorical idea of the demon being like a venereal disease. Like that was a really interesting one. There's this movie called The Relic, not to be confused with the one from the 90s with the giant monster in the museum. This one's actually about dementia manifesting as a haunted house, basically, and it's this really, really interesting movie where this house, because this old lady has dementia and it's kind of bleeding out of her head and materializing within their ancestral home, like her daughter and her granddaughter are there trying to take care of her, and so the house starts to get bigger on the inside than it is on the outside, and they start discovering these new hallways inside the house and these new staircases and these new rooms, and they get lost inside their own house and they can't find their way out because the hallways and corridors keep changing, and it's this really, really crazy idea. But it's not an A24 movie. Even The Babadook, which is this bullshit movie about, like, oh, it's a ghost, but the ghost is also a manifestation of our guilt, which we'll have to carry with us for the rest of our lives, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't work on face value or as an allegory. It kind of gets, like, neither of them. But it's still trying harder than something like X, which is just, it's the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but instead of Leatherface, it's horny old people that have horny old people sex.
So what you're saying, Mark, is you're saying that A24 is the new Criterion collection?
That's the exact topic we had on Kinonomicon tonight. Yes.
Ooh, I'm going to have to listen to that.
The freaking Criterion collection, you know.
I'll tell you, wait, before, hey, I'm going to tell a story real quick. So the funniest thing that Mark ever told me with a movie review, by the way, if you're squeamish, you might want to dip out for about 30 seconds because it's pretty funny, but I have to describe it the way Mark did. So Mark was watching all these Criterion Collection horror movies. And I asked him, I was like, what did you watch last night? And he goes, I watched this movie called Antichrist. I don't recommend you watch it. I was like, why? What happens? He's like, there's a part at the end where this lady takes safety scissors and cuts off Willem Dafoe's manhood. And I was like, oh my gosh! He's like, that's Criterion Collection.
It's worse than that. It's actually, because I mean, I've seen dicks get ripped off in horror movies before, so I mean, that wasn't
that's a layup.
this was something this was a body horror thing I had never seen in a horror movie
Hey,
before.
we're a PG-13 channel. Don't go into too much detail.
I won't go into too much detail, but the lady cuts off her lady part that you could say is similar to Willem Dafoe's part that got cut off. Her turtle head pops out and she snips it off, and it's one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life. That just made me go, "Oh God, I don't even have that anatomy," and it made me like cringe and crumple up. But yeah, that movie is like, but
that's Criterion Collection.
Criterion is like, people would sit down, in front of like a roaring fire, holding a snifter of wine, watching a Criterion Collection movie like they'd be like, tonight on the Criterion Collection, The Seventh Seal. Ooh, Yojimbo, a Akira Kurosawa classic. Michael Bay's Armageddon. Truly, truly Criterion. And I was like, really? Are you snobs just sitting there like watching the cinematic and thematic values of Armageddon? And what's another? The Rock was in there. The Rock's the Criterion Collection movie.
Jim Tuner
just
quoted you.
I know you just said that, so I've seen dicks get ripped off before, guys.
I mean, I'm sorry. That's actually become almost like it happens a lot in horror movies. It's almost like
I'm watching the wrong horror movies then.
You need to watch Night of the Demon. It's a Bigfoot movie where they filmed the movie to be more of like a scary monster in the woods, but it didn't have any gore or violence. And the producer's like, that won't sell. Film a bunch of new scenes where just random characters get murdered by Bigfoot. And so just in the middle of the movie, like there's this guy on a motorcycle driving on the highway, like in the middle of nowhere, and he just stops his motorcycle, goes over to the side of the road, starts pissing in a bush, and then Bigfoot pops out of the bush, grabs his dick, and rips it off.
Oh my!
It's just, and the guy's like, "Oh God!" and he just falls over and dies. And
all right, what's the genre of horror that I'm watching? Am I even watching horror? I'm watching like The Conjuring in. Like, is that even horror?
You watch Baby's first horror movie.
Yeah, it's Baby's first horror movie.
Oh God, Baby!
I like
first
the first Conjuring.
You a baby?
Oh my God!
I like James Wan movies. I just watched that recent one he did, *Malignant*, and that one was actually pretty good.
Have you seen *Sinister*?
Pretty good. Yeah, *Sinister* is one of those movies that I want to like it, but it just keeps doing certain things that just piss me off. Like, it does the jump scare instrumental musical sting where it leads you towards the scare, and then loud noise, and then it leads you towards loud noise, and like, you're telegraphing your scares are not scary. The first Sinister, it has like moments in it that are really like all the 8mm or 16mm films he finds. Yeah, of like those families getting killed, like those things are messed up, and like those parts are really good. The ghost children dancing around in the hallway and in the attic, and he can't see them, like that was really dumb. But it's, and then like Bagul popping up at the end.
Don't say his
do
name.
a jump scare. Yeah.
Don't say his name.
Don't say his name. Like, there's just like dumb stuff in it. Like, The Conjuring does that too. And as much as I like James Wan, he just he has a hard time ending his horror movies. Like, Insidious is really good up until the very end, where he's like, how do I end the movie? CGI demon crawling around on the walls. And
oh yeah, that was awful. I watched Sinister with 4 of my dude friends in my bed, and we were all under the
your bed.
Yeah, and we were all under the cover. And we were all under the covers. It was so gay. I don't know even how we got.
Each other's dicks off.
I don't know how. Like, to this day, I don't know how we got into that situation of like, let's watch Sinister. Let's all get on in Tyler's bed and watch this movie, and we're all under the covers. It was so gay.
Hey, Jim Tuner says RoboCop was Criterion too. I think. Hey, that deserved to be in there.
That one I will make a case for. Yes.
Someone put, "I love how we went from wholesome topics."
That's what I was gonna say. Young
riffing.
Danny says, "I love how we went from wholesome topics."
That's just Mark.
That's because you've stayed this whole time. We went from 32 viewers to 16. So this is Common America After Dark.
This is the Bunderdome.
We go from
After Dark.
PGs to PG-13, but only in our language. I was telling Mark, I was telling Tyler yesterday about Wendigoon. I was like, you should get on the
man,
Wendigoon
his
train.
channel's great.
Yeah, it's the best thing ever. It's so good.
Because he reads a lot of like classic literature, like the Divine Comedy and whatever, like the Divine Comedy, Dante's Inferno, and he did like a 9-hour. Like, it was done in 3 parts, Inferno, Paradiso, and Purgatorio. But he did like a 9-hour video essay where he just gives his book review on it, and it's hilarious because he read all the footnotes and all the apocrypha and everything, and he gives a really informed review of everything about the book. It's like, yeah, this is basically just Bible fan fiction with Dante as a self-insert OC. Then everywhere he goes, everyone's like, Dante, you're the greatest poet in the world, man. You're so cool.
He calls it Bible fan fiction. It's so funny.
Yeah.
It's it'd be the equivalent of you, Tyler. Like, you write this masterpiece where you go to hell and purgatory and heaven, and then people are coming, and in the book you're your own OC, and people are coming to you and being like, we heard about the great Tyler, like, you're like such a great writer, and you're like, I know.
Well, no, it'd be like if you,
I
you
know.
you go to Limbo and you meet Aristotle, and Aristotle's like, Tyler, I've heard of you, author of Girl with the Mega Fist.
It's so good. Yeah, Wendigoon. People in the chat, if you don't follow him, I don't say this much about YouTubers because I generally don't like most of them, but this guy, he went from basically like 6 subs to 1.6 million in the course of 6 months, because his content is so good. Yeah, and all he does, he's just like a man on the street who like basically goes through conspiracy icebergs and does like book reports and stuff, but he's down to earth guy. Check out his channel.
He just talks about whatever he wants.
Kinda. That's essentially what it is, but it's the way he presents it. Like,
that's what's consistent.
He talks like we do, essentially, like just kind of Joe Schmo.
He's an everyday man.
Yeah, he's an everyman. So he's good stuff. Neo Valentine, Mark has 2 modes: Goblin no mode, and let me tell you about dick ripping. I'm gonna say this, Mark. I think you broke Sudapico's heart because she was like, I'm gonna go tune into Kinonomicon to listen to Mark Sensei talk about X. And I know she hasn't posted since, so
I'm hoping that because English isn't her first language, she can't understand that first half hour of Kinonomicon, because it's just Nasser, Hot Dog, and me just talking over each other, because Nasser really loved X, and Hot Dog hated it, and I fell in the middle where I just thought it was a completely mediocre C-average horror movie. I didn't feel much about it either way, and we're all just like yelling at each other, and insisting that no, it was the best horror movie ever. Like, no, it was dog shit. No, it was meh. And so I'm hoping that she just can't decipher the opinions from all the noise, because I bet she liked it. But she's such a nice person. I think she just likes everything because she's so positive.
She's tuning in right now, and she's insulted that you thought that she can't understand. She's like, I speak perfect English. Thank you very much.
Mark Sensei, you are dead to me.
Mark Sensei, no more goblin drawings. You are dead to me. She's so nice. She and the other Japanese readers that we have, they've sent us 2 care packages, and it's like, I feel awful because I'm like, this is honestly more than we deserve. Like, it's so much stuff that they gave us. But you and I talked about this last night, Tyler, but I don't know how to describe it. I mean, they don't have a transactional relationship. It just doesn't happen. If they like what you do, they just do it because they like it. We talked about it, how like it's really hard now whenever we're entertaining the notion of finding an American artist. It's just like, even when it comes to fan art, it's like, hey, I saw that you shared my fan art. That's really cool. If I make more, will you pay me for it? It's like, no, I shared it because you did it. Like, I didn't ask for it. It's like, oh, okay, whatever. It's like,
I had
Okay.
someone, I had an artist message me, and they do really good art, and they go, "Hey, I want to do fan art of your character," and I went, "Oh, that's great." He goes, "Yeah, I would normally charge you 500 for this, but I'm gonna do it for free." And I
Okay.
went, oh, I went, okay, thanks. And they're just like, now, can you guarantee me followers though if I draw
Oh my
this? And I was
gosh.
Ah,
like,
jeez.
I don't know, but we'll see. And they were like, yeah, looking at your stuff, I'm not gonna get anything. I'm not drawing your thing. And I'm like, whatever. Um, I'm never gonna pay you $500. Um, so for art, but I was like, man, like the whole like that whole conversation was so slimy. And I was like, listen, if you want to draw my character, please do. If
Yeah.
you don't want to, that's fine.
That's
If you
fine.
want me
Yeah.
to pay you, we'll see. But if you're just trying to leverage me for
Yeah.
something, that's when I don't like it.
When you ever,
Well, you
yeah,
know
when you
what?
come
It's
in
like
hot.
one of our Japanese readers, Noonchan. You know what he did yesterday? He did an animated GIF of Goblin stealing fried chicken just because I posted a photo of Goblin eating my fried chicken off the counter. And so he just immediately went and he did a simple animation of Goblin eating fried chicken. He just did it for fun.
For fun, like,
Obviously, it's not going to appear in a book or anything. Goblin's not in Common America. He just did it because he thought it would be funny. And
they do it for the
there's
lulls essentially. Like
yeah.
to them, it's like I have free time. I enjoy interacting with these people. I'm going to do it, and I'm not expecting like anything in return. And for Nunshan, I'm not going to go into like some of the stuff that he and I have talked about behind the scenes, but basically, it's like, how do I pay you? Because like there's some stuff that I want you to work on, but basically, it's like I don't know how to describe it. It's like he doesn't want the payment. So I was like, I'll pay you in stuff. Like I'll literally give you stuff. But they're so apologetic. They're like, I really don't want anything. It's like, man, it's just such a weird mentality. There's like a lot of cognitive dissonance. So my warning to a lot of you listening, if you're creators, beware, because you want to find, it's great if you can stay in America and find someone that you know personally. I'm telling you, that thing that Jack Kirby said about comics breaking your heart is true. Like 9 times out of 10, you're looking at people who want transactional relationships, or, not to bring it up again, they see everything as like a bribe. Like, oh, you did this for me, you bribed me. It's like, no, it's called, I wanted to do something nice for you. There was no strings attached, and there shouldn't be any expectation of it. That's what that boils down to. But the Japanese readers that we've encountered, the Taiwanese readers too, and to some extent the people in China and Korea, it's just not there. It's just like, no, we like this. We want to create the art, and we're not expecting anything in return. And what they'll do typically is they'll do like 2 pieces, and then you'll look at their feed and they've moved on. Like they'll do like Faith Grand Order, or they'll do Spy Family. They'll just do like a plethora of art that they like, and they're not expecting anything in return. I think part of the only thing they get from doing it is, one, they like people reacting and being like, ah, that's funny, or oh, I love it. And then they get some followers on Twitter or Instagram or wherever they might be, but there's never any of this posturing where it's like, oh, now you owe me something.
Just
It's
do
like,
it for the
no.
memes, guys.
Yeah, just do it for the memes, exactly. But again, we talked about yesterday, a really unpopular opinion.
Well, I was talking to a creator. I won't say their name. And I was like, yeah, so like, what's your plans? Like, you just put out your first comic, and they're like, yeah, so I'm feeling if I go on this person's show, and hopefully this person also is on it, and then if I talk to them, I'll get on this show, and then I'm gonna do all this. Like, whoa, this is grossly strategic. That it was like, I was like, okay, and you're getting on the show because you want to be friends with them, or like they go, oh no, it's just to get to this guy. But
Well,
to get to this guy, I've got to go
it
through
does
these 10
something.
other people.
It does something too that I know you've had some guests on your show who advocate for it, and I'm just gonna say I think they're full of crap. But it encourages the parasocial relationship, and I think that's unhealthy. Like, these people that you're interacting with, they're not your friends. Like, they're just people behind the screen, and it's like, don't get me wrong, I think from a marketing perspective, I think that you do what you can, obviously, to get eyes out there, but I think like trying to sneak your way in and having it be like a conscious decision, I don't agree with that. It's like, every person that we've encountered, it's typically because they've reached out to us. Like, honestly, the way you met me was you reached out to me, And
it was strategic, guys. It was just so I could get here.
It
was just so I could get here because I was like, guys, if I can just get on their show on September 2022, I'll be set. So this is 3 years in the making.
Well, it's like this. So in this type of relationship, it's like Tyler has a very popular YouTube channel, and he needs the content to see, okay, well, I hear that these people are doing very good things with their book. In the meantime, I'm like, well, we have like this work out there, but honestly, we don't have a platform to showcase it. So in that sense, you do have a transaction of sorts. But after that, there's no transactional relationship. It's like, if Tyler wants me on the show solely for the sole purpose of interviewing us for the business side of things, that's fine. I'm willing to do that. When in exchange for that, he obviously is going to try and platform us. But there would not be this kind of illusion that there's any relationship there. But obviously now we're friends, so we don't talk about, just business a lot of times. We do talk about some other bullcrap that has nothing to do with anything that we're doing. But I think in a lot of circumstances, it's like, no, like a lot of times you think that you're in a relationship, but you're not. You're either in a transactional relationship or you're in a weird parasocial relationship where you think that this person, this like e-celeb that you look up to, really likes you and notices you. And it's like, no, they just like your money. Like that's essentially what they like. They don't really care.
And I will say, I think there are some parasocial relationships that can be quote unquote okay. There are some people where I watch their stuff and I go, they are so just milking you for your money.
Yeah.
That it's almost sick. Then
there's some people who the person does not mind. I mean, for example, people who do OnlyFans, they are using that as basically an aid for their needs, and it's understood. Like,
oh yeah,
I know what I'm doing. It's like, okay, well,
and they're like, listen, you're lonely. I'm here for you. Like, I don't know if you get on your Twitter, it's just like, want to watch anime with me, and I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing on my timeline? How did you get here? And it's not possible for me to. So stop lying to me. You don't like anime. My brother's like, my brother went on a date and this girl actually was like, hey, do you want to watch the Demon Slayer movie? And he was like, oh my gosh, I've never seen it. She goes, yeah, I got it. And he goes, oh, that's so awesome. And he's like a legit Demon Slayer fan. And he was like, I was like, how was the Demon Slayer movie? He goes, she thought it was a date.
Oh my god.
And they go, well, what happened? He goes, well, she wanted to get me to kiss during the fight scene. and he's like, yeah, I'm not getting a, she won't call me back.
Like, it was bullshit. I went over to watch the movie and all she did was suck my dick.
Netflix and chill. Yeah, you didn't want to watch Netflix. Like, what the heck? She was like, take your pants off. I'm like, I'm trying to watch the movie. This is weird.
You know, the weird thing about it though is that like that's such a guy thing. Like, for example, when my wife and I were dating, we were watching a movie, and essentially the same thing kind of happened where it was like a scene and she just like leaned over and wanted to like put her head on my shoulder, and I'm like, dude, they're about to like they're about to kill Thanos. Like, get your head off my shoulder. Like, this is not the time for that.
Or I hate it when it's like they always pick like the impromptu. I'm like, you're watching the movie, you go, oh my gosh, we're finally getting to the part that I wanted, and they're like, hey, so it's like, don't talk during this part. This is literally all I want is this like 10-minute scene. But I think with some relationships, like I hope that maybe some people come here because we haven't chilled anything tonight. I hope people are like coming here and maybe they go, oh, I'm watching this stream because I like hearing these three guys talk. It may be like as an escape, maybe. Or they go like I try to think of like, oh, when I stream I go, okay, what can I bring that's value to someone, like for free, like not money, but like can I either can I entertain you real quick, can I give you an escape, but yeah, there are some of those people where I'm like, they're like, drop a super chat. I'm like, oh, you don't care about me. You want my money.
It's like when Ben Shapiro shills like a comic and you know he hasn't read it. He's like, so tell me about your book. Okay, so it's fighting the SJWs. Tell me about the themes of your book. Oh, okay, well, it's a great book, and I think everyone should buy it because this author paid me $700 to tell you that.
You got that voice right. You just needed to like go like 10 times faster.
And then bobble your head. Get on camera and bobble your head when you talk.
The SJWs, they want to trade down comics, but Tim Lemon and Tom Mark Pellegrini, they're coming out with Kamen America.
There was this thing, like I was telling a friend of ours about it, but I get ads on Facebook for Daily Wire, and the ones for the movies are really annoying because they do that same thing that I was telling you about with the X meets Y, except the way he does it is, for example, it's like Terror on the Prairie, for example. The ad for that movie is like, it's Ben Shapiro and he's talking, and he's like, the SJW's tried to cancel Gina Carano, but they couldn't get very far because Daily Wire reached out to her, and she's now starring in her own movie. It's called Terror on the Prairie. Make sure to check it out. Subscribe to Daily Wire. And I'm like, I don't understand what your movie's about.
So what's the movie about?
Yeah, why don't you just tell me what your movie's about? But the funny thing is that you had people, like, they comment, and they're like, yeah, this is how you do it. And I'm like, I don't get me wrong, like, I'm not a marketing expert at all, but it's like, okay, but I think that I don't patronize our readers because I'm like, I assume our readers are smart. Like, I think that's a form of pandering to them where it's like, hey, I know you're mad about X. Here's the alternative to X. As opposed to, hey, here are the reasons why X is not good. Y is the alternative and it's better for this reason. I don't need to really differentiate the two by just trying to sell the outrage. I'm going to differentiate it by actually objectively saying why our alternative is better.
I mean, instead of giving like the whole history lesson about Gina Carano, I mean, all he needed to say was like, in a world where you don't know if a movie is safe for your family to watch, we've created a movie that's safe for your family to watch. To Western, talk about the story, but
here's what it's about. You know?
Yeah, tell what it's about. But instead, he goes in the whole the SJWs, like we're at war, and it's like it's that outrage money, and then it is crazy. The comment section in Daily Wire stuff, I sometimes go through those and I go, I hope people are sane. And then I go, I guess they're not. And there's crazies on both ends.
Yeah, it's again,
I'm one of them. I'm trying to be the next QAnon shaman. But I didn't get invited to the field this last week, so
yeah, so I don't know. Like I said, we're not marketing gurus, and someone's gonna come back and say, "Yeah, but look how much money they're making." Okay, that's fine. I'm just saying that from my perspective, it's not the way we like to do things.
To me, it's just as bad. It's whether even though if I agree with their politics, it's the same playbook.
Mm-hmm. It's I think that as people, in order for you to train your brain to be a little bit more, to be smarter and to be more of a critical thinker, you have to look at the things that are marketed to you and ask yourself, why are you doing it? Are you doing it because you're riled up and you're succumbing to your passions? Or is it because it's a medium with something that actually is meritorious of your attention? And unfortunately, like, everyone is just going to be very different as far as that's concerned. So whatever. Different strokes for different folks.
You have that movie that's out right now called The Woman King. It's
from the kingdom of the homie.
Yeah,
it's the woman.
The homies.
I'm not kidding. That's the name of the kingdom. It's called the kingdom of the homie.
And
DAHOMEY.
And besides the fact that the premise is about like the woman king and how she's like they're trying to get like they're trying to stop their business of slavery. Which is not true. Which is not true. I was talking to some African friends, and I'm like, "Yo, what do you guys think about the woman king?"
This is insulting Tyler Carpenter.
They're going, "Ow, a woman, king, no such thing."
This is stupid. I want to say that the king is a woman.
And I was just like, "Oh my gosh!" It's not even pandering to the right people, because the African people, I go, king, a woman, a woman,
and it's funny because
they're laughing.
Africans, they're like some of the most based people on the planet. Like, they don't like being pandered to. Whenever Mark can attest to this, we have some exchange students who are from Africa, and they look at like the culture of certain people here, and they're like, that is not right. Like in Africa, that is not how we behave.
And it's funny
Wakanda,
because like
that is bullshit.
it's funny
Wakanda's
because
not even a real country.
when I got to Africa, and this shows my my innate white supremacy. I go in there and I'm talking to these people. I'm like, I think they're dumb. I think these people are legit dumb. And then as you talk to them, you go, no, they just see through the bull crap that I'm fed all this. I'm all fed all this propaganda, and I go, oh, I'm smart one, and they're like, this is what it is. Like they're like, there's a man and there's a woman. That's it. Or they go, why would you do that? Like that'd be a common phrase. Like why is 50 Cent doing that? Is he stupid? Why would they do that? Why, like Kim Kardashian? Why did she do this? Why do you guys like her?
Why do you like her? That is so crazy.
And I'm like, I don't know. And they go, she is stupid. Why would you marry a woman like that? She's stupid. And I'm like, fair.
What is this? What is this WAP? Water aerial
What is this WAP?
Water aerial phenomenon? That's what that means? No, that's not what that means. Oh my goodness! Why are you listening to this? This is terrible. Yeah, they're a lot of the people, like for example, it was so funny. I think it was either the World Economic Forum or the United Nations. They put out this guide, this guide for Filipinos for like the new genderless language in the Philippines.
Oh, Filipino X.
Yeah, and all the Filipinos were like, this is the stupidest thing we've ever seen. Like, no one wants this. And it was the first time, like, I was talking to some people on Twitter. And, typically the Filipinos are very pro-American. But they were, like, mad. They're like, this is more American bullshit that you guys are forcing on us. And I was like, hey, I'm just saying. Well, that's not us. That is, don't get me wrong, that's about 50% of us. But it is not what the majority of us like.
Well, it's like Latinx, where like actual like Latino people are like only white Californians use Latinx, and no actual Hispanic people use.
You and I were talking about it, Tim, and I won't say your answer that you told me behind the scenes, but I was like, every bad problem that we're seeing, there's a white woman behind it. There's a white woman behind literally everything, and it's crazy. They are hijacking movements left and right, and it is phenomenal. They are crazy. Like, white women are like crazy terrorists, and they are to be studied. And like, we need to go, okay, how did they do this? Because they're nuts. White women are nuts. And every time they go like Latinx, I go, oh yeah, a white woman. Like like white savior complex. I got cousins who are white saviors, and I'm like, yeah, so why do you think the, like, African Americans or like Asians or people, they need this? To go, oh, well, they need help. And I'm like, oh yeah, because they're like dumb as fuck, right? And they're like, well, like, we know more. I'm like, oh yeah, because you're smart. Like, I'm like, you think like wow, you think they're so dumb? That's pretty racist. And they're like, no.
It's like the only argument against voter ID is that no, you don't understand. We can't have voter ID because minorities are too poor and stupid to know how to get IDs.
Yeah, and it's like
that's
your
sounds
argument? Really racist.
Yeah, that seems like really condescending of you to make that kind of judgment call against everybody who's apparently not white is too poor or stupid to get an ID.
There was what was that thing I was gonna mention to you, Tyler, about? Oh yeah. So do you have Disney Plus?
Yes.
Okay, so there's a show that's really good. It's called The Imagineering Story, and if you've ever been to like Walt Disney World, it really is like an engineering marvel, because for the most part, I mean, they define what a theme park can be in terms of its potential. But when you're watching this, they use old archival footage and interviews where they're talking to the Imagineers, and like in the 1980s. They were all like working blue collar men, and so it's like, it's like they're interviewing Joe Smith, and it's like, well, I had this thought the other day as I was leaning across my white picket fence, that what we really need is we have to show Main Street USA to be depicted in a way that we envision it, a vision of America, of the future that it could have and its potential in the current day. And that's why we decided to do this. And so you go through like about 30 or 40 years worth of it, and you think to yourself like, wow, like that's such an engineering marvel. And like these are rides that became classic, and then obviously they became like movies later on, like Pirates of the Caribbean. And it's like it's hard to imagine like such a ride with very good intentions not only has withstood the test of time to become a classic, but it reached the point where it actually became like more than its intent. And one of the things that Mark and I have talked about is like the technology on rides now is so good, but for some reason they all suck. Like you ride it, but you don't remember anything like afterwards. Whereas like, as a kid, you ride Pirates of the Caribbean, and you're like, you walk away remembering the song because it's like, man.
That's interesting because they might not have been as like crazy flips and whatnot, but you were given an experience,
and you could tell that there was love and passion in it. Where it's like, yeah, we have this funny goose that sings. It sings a silly goose time, and I came up with this song like because it's a song I sang to my kid or whatever, and when we decided to put that in the ride. And I noticed something. I was like, Mark, you're going to see this as it goes along, and it's going to be depressing. So they go through all the 40 years, and they make it to the current day. And you're like, you actually can see where it starts going bad. And it's when they, like, introduce, like, the woman Imagineer. And she's, like, giving her interview, and she's like, yeah, I'm really devoted to inclusion. And so that's why on this ride, I'm like, pause it. Like, it's like the JFK tape, like, rewind. Like,
so you get right around it. I think it's I can't remember his name, but right around the 80s, you get to this one Imagineer who's got this earring that's a giant feather.
His name is Joe Rohde.
Joe Rohde. And once you get to that guy, he seems like patient zero at Disney Imagineering, where everything started to go wrong because he showed up in the 80s. And I swear to God, I just predict, I'm using my psychic powers, if you walked up to him and you said, hey Joe, what's with the feather on your ear? I guarantee you he'll probably tell you like, oh, I'm 167th Cherokee and I just want to show off my heritage.
But so that guy, it's funny, he in a lot of the Disney circles, he's revered because he was the spearhead of a lot of technologically marvelous rides. But I'm like, those rides, I agree, are fantastic. I don't care about them at all. Like, they could demolish them tomorrow and no one will care.
Like, which ones?
Well, it's like the difference between the Maelstrom and Frozen.
He spearheaded Avatar. Like, Avatar Land was his idea. Everest was his idea. And it's like, Everest, no one cares. Like, it's, yeah, you get
the Yeti comes and it goes backwards at one point.
Yeah, and it goes backwards at one point. But are you going to care if tomorrow they demolish the ride? Do you have, like, a sentimental...
No, so it's like the difference at Epcot between the old ride Maelstrom, which is over in the Norway Pavilion, and it got demolished and replaced with a Frozen ride. And the Norway ride... Maelstrom was not themed after any IP. It was just a celebration of Norwegian folklore. So you're just going through this little dark ride on a little boat, and you're seeing all these animatronic trolls and monsters and little goblins and things. And at one point, the trolls tried to make you go over a waterfall, and you go backwards, kind of like outside the ride and into the pavilion. It was really cool. And then the ride ends, and then you exit to watch a little movie about Norwegian offshore oil rigging, which is just kind of a weird thing. But then they replaced it just with a generic Frozen ride. And I think we rode it like once, maybe even twice, and I can't remember anything except there's a part at the end where you see Elsa and she sings her stupid song that everybody hates, and then you leave. And like, did anything else happen in that ride? It was so bland and forgettable. It just reenacted a couple scenes from the movie, and then you leave. You don't even go backwards down the waterfall anymore. There's no more crazy trolls or anything, because there's no... I hate to say, like, there's no soul anymore, but that's kind of what it is. There's no substance to it. It's just this really hollow commercial for Elsa dolls and Frozen products, where the previous ride, it was befitting the purpose of Epcot to teach about the culture of that pavilion, to teach about the history and the folklore of that pavilion, that Norway. And all that was just kind of thrown away, and you just get this super bland, generic Frozen ride that, of course, like the little 6-year-old girls love because it's a princess ride. But I think that's like one of the main differences between old Disney and new Disney. Is old Disney wasn't trying to sell you on to go out and buy I don't know, a bunch of like Frozen bullshit. It was trying to tell you that the ride itself was the product, and so it was the best ride possible. Whereas
you can only get Pirates of the Caribbean here, not at your home, not in your house. It's here.
Yes, that is the attraction, is the ride. But now the ride is more of a commercial for the product. Where now you want to go buy Elsa DVDs, you want to go watch like the Frozen cartoon that's on Disney Plus and stuff like, and this and that. It's just a commercial for the product of the IP that is Frozen, and that seems just so cynical and hollow, and it leads to these rides that are just a whole lot of nothing. Like the Avatar rides, where there's a log ride where you're supposed to just be going down the river on the gay little Avatar planet, and nothing's going on. There's a bunch of screens of some CGI alien animals prowling around. At the very end, there's an animatronic Avatar thing that's like beating a drum, and you leave, and it's just the most boring, forgettable ride. And then the other ride in Avatar Land is you get on top of like your ride vehicle is this fake pterodactyl, and you're looking at like a dome, like a half dome screen that projects a movie, and then your pterodactyl kind of rocks back and forth, and there's some like wind effects to make you feel like you're flying. But yeah, it's lame. It's completely forgettable. It's like it's somehow a less interesting version of Soarin'. You know, because it
with the big TV.
With the big TV.
Like it follows the same technology as Soarin', and Soarin's not based on any sort of IP. It's not trying to sell you on a James Cameron movie. It's just like, hey, let's go fly around the world and look at a bunch of landmarks and, you know, marvel at architecture and nature. And it's 10 times more interesting than the Avatar ride, because the Avatar ride is just trying to sell you on crappy James Cameron movies.
I feel like that magic that you're talking about is lost. I'm feeling that with a lot of things recently. Like someone at work at my job was like, "Oh, dude, are you watching any of the Marvel TV shows?" And I'm like, "No." And they were like, you know, there's that graph that they showed where it's like there is more content with Phase 5 than there was with Phases 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Wow.
And I'm like, yeah, it's just because it's so consumer centric now. It's because there's too much. I don't want any of it. And then with like even with comics, like I remember there was a time where like every month I was dying to get to the shop so I could read the next issue, and now I'm like I don't even care, like what happens. It's like that magic has gone away, and I hate to answer this question from Neostar. Did anyone even watch that Frozen sequel? Yes.
I did not.
Yes, and it has one of the best songs. It's better than the first one. It's like, Into the Unknown. It's so good. It's better than the first one. It's less annoying. It's dope.
What's funny is that, ironically, like I'm also not a throw the baby out with the bathwater thing. I think that there's some gems that can be found. Like we're not going to mention it. It's not just that we have to end this stream here pretty soon, but so Mark and I recently, there's been some things that have been getting like a lot of hate, but basically we didn't watch any of the reviews for it, and I was like, I'm gonna watch this and just not talk about it. So my wife and I watched it, and we were both like, hey, I liked it. It's pretty good. And then one day, Mark was like, have you seen this show? And I said, yeah. And he's like, how come you didn't tell me about it? And I said, I don't know, because I have an unpopular opinion, which is I actually thought it was good. And he's like, no, I watched it last night. It was great. I was like,
guys,
really?
They like She-Hulk.
Nah,
they like
She-Hulk.
It wasn't that.
It wasn't She-Hulk. I promise you that.
It wasn't that. But it was definitely like a fandom that has a lot of people who don't like it.
Sometimes you just have to divorce yourself from a fandom, especially if it's one where they kind of just want to hate on it, and just enjoy it for... You'll find that, you know... We're not talking about this, but another situation. Ghostbusters Afterlife. That was a great movie. I loved it. And I didn't go into it wanting to hate it just because the 2016 Ghostbusters movie was shit. You know, and like, you don't want everything Ghostbusters to be bad forever just because they made one bad movie that sucked. So, like, okay, I'm going to watch this one and hope it's good. And I watched it, and it was very good, and I really enjoyed it. and it redeemed, you know.
You want to give
franchise.
these IPs you want to give them like a chance at least.
Yeah.
Everyone's like Tim and Mark confirm Rings of Power fans.
Oh, no,
You guys
no,
don't have
no,
to.
no.
You don't have to confirm anything. But like, I watched Rings of Power, and I enjoyed it. Now, I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying there were moments where I was like, okay, like really, she just flew and took out that troll, whatever. But it's like there are but like when I told some friends who were massive like Lord of the Rings fans, they're like, how could you like that? And it was like, okay, it's like, geez, okay, I enjoyed it. Like, I'm not like into it like you, so like it's okay. Like, and it's almost like you have to have like a side, and you can't just like enjoy things for just face value. Like, I watched
You have
Rings
to
of
hate
Power.
everything forever.
Yeah, I watched Rings of Power, and they go, it's not Tolkien. I'm like, it's just fan fiction for me. I'm just reading. I'm just watching fan fiction.
That's a good way of thinking about it. And I think some people are like, I noticed that some people are really opposed to the idea of headcanon, where it's like, oh, you can't do that because something is as it is. And I'm like, well, you might have I'm not going to try and debate you on that, but the reality is like, Mark and I both agree that, for example, for Spider-Man, it's like, for me, the canon of Spider-Man ended at a certain point, and anything beyond that is just like, to me, it just doesn't exist, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, you can't do that. It's like, why? It's fiction.
Yeah,
Everything after
I can do whatever
Endgame.
I don't see any cops around. I can do what I want.
I'm not telling you that that's how it is. I'm saying that for me, that's what I enjoy.
Everything after Marvel Endgame to me is just it's there.
Yeah, it's there. Whatever.
It doesn't matter. And to me, when someone goes, "Oh, like, are you still watching Marvel movies?" I go, "Oh no, like it ended at Endgame. it's over. They told the story. They go, "Oh no, there's more," and I'm like, "There aren't though. It's just it ended at Endgame, and to me that's it."
Yeah.
Same with like Star Wars.
That's how I am with Batman. So Batman comics, my headcanon is that it ends with No Man's Land. Because that was just a perfect ending. It basically got as epic as a Batman story could get. You have this final kind of reconciliation between Batman and Gordon at the very end when everything's done with. It's like, all right, and I've read some of the stuff afterward. There's been some good stuff, but nothing that's even come close. They've rebooted a bunch of times. Like, no, my canon ends with No Man's Land. Same thing with X-Men. You know, that's the Marvel comic that I used to follow the most. It ends with Onslaught. Onslaught is like the fusion of Magneto and Professor X. It's the ultimate villain. They actually topped Age of Apocalypse. It's this huge deal. It ends with Onslaught rewriting the universe. All the other Marvel heroes go and leave to another universe, leaving the mutants behind in their universe. So you finally have this separation of human and mutant that's finally happened. It's an ending. It feels like an ending, a conclusion. So I stop there. You know, I have in my head canon, it's like, nope, that's the ending. People are like, but they made like 25 more years of X-Men comics. Like, I don't have to read them.
Can you imagine if someone said the same thing that we're saying with comics about manga? They're like, they're like, yeah, Naruto ended with me at at this point, like nothing else mattered. It's like, but the story didn't end.
I mean, there are times when I feel that way, like with Dragon Ball Z, where I was like, I just want to say that it ends with the Cell Saga because I really don't like any of the Buu Saga. But I know that, or even then, like, I haven't read Dragon Ball Super, so to me it ends with the Buu
Dragon
Saga.
Ball Z.
Like, okay,
yeah,
Dragon Ball Z just ends at Dragon Ball Z. The Buu Saga, it's done. I haven't read Super. I don't need to read Super. I've got my conclusive ending. So yeah, I mean, people do that with manga.
I think
as well.
that's a hell. Yeah, that's true. I was funny because when you said Dragon Ball Z, I went, oh, I did the same thing.
Yeah.
As I was talking, like I did the same thing. So, yeah, I think what you brought up, Tim, and what we just talked. I think that's like the healthiest way to enjoy stuff is to have your own canon.
Yeah.
Well, because that's the idea. If you do want to enjoy it, I get it. If some people don't, that's fine. But to be honest, after a hard day's work and you're just vegging out and you just want to watch something on television, it doesn't hurt anything to just be like, crap, I'll just give this a try and see. It's not like you're declaring your fealty or your loyalty to it. It's just like, man, I'm just bored. Just want to watch something, and then you find something and it's like, I don't know what the hate's all about. I kind of like this thing. And that's fine too. So, but I know it's like really unpopular, so we just don't talk about it publicly. But there are like at least 2 or 3 things I've seen recently where I was like, I don't know what these people are talking about. Like, I think it's fine. And I'm a picky dude too. It's like, nah.
He's watching the most recent Bachelor season where it's like 2 girls, they're friends, and they're wanting to date the same guy, but they can't. So it's a crazy season. This one.
Two things. Let's see here. Young Danny says, at least with manga, we don't have reboots out the butt. That's true. And in fact, like you can only count on your hands so many times. Like I know Sailor Moon had a reboot, which was actually really good. Dirty Pair.
Devilman has had like 6 or 7 reboots. Yeah. That one is like the exception.
Dirty Pair has had one at least that I know of. I know Tenchi Muyo always reboots up until the point where it like didn't. But yeah, it's rare. You can like count on so many fingers, like how many you can actually name. Where's the other comment that I wanted to bring up real quick?
Hey, we know it's the weird like reversal of that.
What?
Super Sentai in Japan is rebooted every season. There isn't they'll cross over, but there isn't a continuity. They all take place in different universes. Power Rangers has been an ongoing series that all takes place in the same universe since it started. So it's a case where the American version never rebooted, but the Japanese version reboots every season.
Alejandro is here. I just wanted to point this out real quick. Alejandro is here. Woo!
Wait, is that true of Power Rangers? In Japan, it's technically rebooted, but in America, we keep it as one universe.
So Super Sentai has like a really loose idea of continuity, where it's like they do an annual team up, but it doesn't necessarily mean that each Super Sentai team shares the same universe. It's just kind of like it's almost like Final Fantasy, where it's just a new story. Like every season is a new story, every game is a new story. You might see Chocobos, and you might see that one guy who's in every Final Fantasy game, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they share a Sid. So it doesn't mean just because Sid's in every game, it doesn't mean that every game, Final Fantasy game's in the same continuity.
Interesting.
And so with Super Sentai, it's like that. Yeah, they'll cross over, they'll team up, but that's basically just fan service. Whereas Power Rangers has been an ongoing continuity. They'll change the cast and the team every season, but it's still each one picks up after the last one, and it's a single ongoing narrative. The one time we do that where Japan doesn't, we have the reversal, is Power Rangers versus Super Sentai.
Real quick, so we're gonna end this because I need to get back to work.
I gotta go to bed. I have work in the morning. Yeah.
It's been a lot of fun. Richard the Fox is correct. Would Gundam count? I guess there's certain series like that, like Final Fantasy, where essentially, basically, there are certain thematic elements that are consistent, but every time it's like those things aren't connected to each other. As far as I know, I know that there's some Gundam series that are connected, but just like Final Fantasy, there's some where they're all disconnected, even though they share similar elements. But anyway, it was nice having y'all on the show. I just want to say real quick that the link for The Girl with the Mega Fist is in the description.
Oh, shucks.
I want to thank everyone for supporting Kamen America Volume 6. This has been our best launch for both backers and for funds raised on an opening day. So we're very happy about that. Again, we don't know how it's going to conclude, because this is actually going to be the shortest campaign we've run so far to date. Like, it is a very, very short campaign. But we don't care, because we already made the money that we need to fund the next project after that. So essentially, we're going to, I don't want to say we're going to consciously tone down the shilling, but if you don't see that much of it, it's because it's kind of, we've already kind of surpassed our expectations.
If we spam everyone's timelines, they're eventually going to mute the words "common in America," and that'll do us a disservice. So
right. So typically, like, I think if you've noticed for the last few days on Twitter, I just haven't been posting very much, because it's like, we've already kind of achieved our goal. So I'm just going to calm down a little bit on as far as that's concerned. But we do like the engagement that we get. Soulfinder Infinite Ascent on Kindle right now, as of today. So if you like reading digital, you can read the whole book up there, and Doug always has his books priced very nice, even for the digital versions too. So make sure to check all 3 out. I want to thank Tyler Carpenter again. Make sure to check out the talk that he and I did last night on his channel. Also, his channel has very good content as far as other topics are concerned: manga, anime, movies, television, business, strategies, comics, etc., etc. So make sure to check it out and back his book. Because...
To Neo Valentine, real quick, are you going to be at FanX? I don't have a booth there, but I'll be there on Saturday. If you just look for the dreaded dinosaur table, that guy, he got me a free ticket, so I'll be there. Okay. I'll be wearing my Mega Fist shirt.
Awesome. Yeah, make sure to catch Tyler at a comic convention this weekend. I'm guessing FanX is somewhere in Utah?
Yeah, it's in Salt Lake.
Salt Lake. Okay.
And I can never get a booth. So I can never get a booth, and I'm like, screw it.
For that, let's end with that. It's been great. We have about 30 more days on Common America Volume 6, so if you want, make sure to check it out. Fulfillment is still ongoing for the crossover, so the next few months up until through November are going to be really busy as far as that's concerned, and then we're just gearing up for the spring book as well as the year itself. But thank you all for reading our stuff and for tuning in.
If you want a book, you don't have to wait 2.5 years for, because it's already ready to go. Pre-order Common America 6. We take it seriously.
I was about to make a joke about an investor stealing our money, but I'm just gonna leave it.
Damn, that's a great way to end.
It's out there already, so it's like, hey, I'm not saying anything that people haven't already heard. But anyway, y'all have a good night. Thank you for tuning in. Hopefully this has been kind of amusing to some of you, but we're appreciative for the most part. People buy our stuff because they like the content. They could really care less about us or our personalities.
I bought Common America because Mark talked about ripping dicks off. So
that's a selling point right there. Have a good night, everyone.
Peace.
Bye.
Night.